call this meeting to order for the roll call.
Councilmember Fan. Councilmember Dominguez.
Present.
Councilmember Chua.
Here.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Here.
Mayor Tran.
Present. Thank you so much, Wendy. And next up is our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand as you may. I'll go ahead and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it. All right. Okay, adjust my camera here. Welcome everybody all across Milpitas and the interwebs, wherever you are on our planet. We are streaming here through this pandemic on Facebook Live and YouTube.com. Thank you for being here with us at the special City Council meeting as we will be discussing the American Rescue Plan funds. All right, moving on to the approval agenda. I will move to approve the agenda if there are no objections. Hearing no objections, the agenda has been approved. Thank you very much. Next up is the public forum. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, we do have guests. I know we have a lot of folks that are interested in our agenda item tonight. We have one, and so I will look for 1 minute this evening, and we'll keep it very consistent. All right, the public forum is really now, but I want to really encourage our guests. I got a couple emails. I know there's folks tuning in from different areas of the community, industries, or stakeholders. I'd like to ask if you're here for agenda item number 1 to wait a moment, and we'll get to agenda item number 1 and we'll take your public comment. But it is the public forum and this is what we do. So I will go for any virtual raised hands that are present. First up, we have Drew Mitchell. Hey, Drew, you there? It is the public forum. We're gonna go with the virtual raised hands. If you'd like for your virtual raised hand to be up, great. If not, you want to wait until item number 1, you can do that too. But I do see a virtual raised hand. Drew. Drew Mitchell, are you there? Okay, we can get back to you. Let's go next. Voltaire Montemayor.
Oh, did I find the unmute button? This is Voltaire. Hello, everybody. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the City Council members. The City Manager. Did I miss names? City Manager and staff. Anyway, mine is a short one, but I don't wanna mention. It's for agenda. The only agenda for tonight. Anyway, it's a broad topic. I know there are a lot of details. I printed the 17 attachments, and yeah, there are lots of features. In other words, I hope, I pray. Should I mention anyway? I'm not trying to jump off, but could be a very stable bridge. So we'll cross the bridge. In other words, 2021 as it starts. So good luck. Not good luck. We wish for a good one for Milpitas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montemayor, as always. Okay, great. Next up, with the virtual raised hand, we have Jackie Romero.
Good evening, Mayor Tran and council members. Last week I was on a call and I was sadly listening to the meeting. I was sad to hear that the chief, the fire chief enforcement officer's position was going to be defunded without really consideration to how much money we have invested as a city in his training. He has so much training that we have paid for It just makes no sense to let somebody go that has that much training. He's an asset to the city. It brings me back to 2012 when the theater was defunded in a way that we had to get contractor situation. I think maybe that's a solution here, maybe have him as a contractor, but we can't let go of an asset that's, in my opinion, very important to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're here in the public forum, folks. If you're here for the public forum rather than item number one, this is your time if you'd like to provide some public comment. Seeing no further virtual raised hands, I thank you all for being here, and we're going to move forward. Next up is the announcements and future agenda items. Per usual, let's go to our city manager, Steve McCares, for any announcements.
Well, thank you, Mayor Tran, and good evening to you and the members of the council. I have one brief announcement. The city is launching an international trade and commerce program this week with the purpose to build value for local businesses in international markets. So our focus will be on competing at home and abroad, developing trade and commerce, building business-to-business relationships, workforce development opportunities, retaining and creating jobs. The program is designed in a series of 4 free webinars in partnership with Mission College's Small Business Institute. The first webinar will be this Thursday, June 10th from 10 to 11 a.m. Registration is quite easy by visiting the city's COVID-19 Business Resource webpage. That concludes my announcements, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate you. All right, we'll bring it back over to the other side of the virtual dais. And I just want to make a couple of announcements. I kind of said a lot of thanks at the last meeting to our city staff, from all the city managers, city attorney, department directors, department chiefs. I just want to say thank you again for all your work. One thing I was thinking about recently was just how I've watched this organization from within develop over the last 3 terms and over the last handful of years. And I have seen this organization take a step forward and a step back, a step forward and 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, no steps back. And I want to say that I'm so thankful for our city staff and our organization from the bottom of my heart, because I really do feel that with the city manager, we've really taken a whole bunch of steps forward, and really as of more recent times, we haven't been taking steps back. And so I just want to be very clear with everybody how and why I'm so thankful. And I'm so happy as a resident and as your mayor to say that. And I want to take a moment here during announcements to continue to thank everybody in the city staff side for all their hard work. It means everything. Our residents, we're engaged with our residents, and our residents are so happy too. Just nothing but positive and tremendous actions and accomplishments and news coming out of our city hall. It's just really a blessing. So thank you to our city staff. The next announcement I want to make is I want to wish a happy birthday to our longest standing city commissioner on the planning commission. Happy birthday, Larry Ciardella, our planning commissioner. It's his birthday today. Everybody knows Larry is really involved in our community and has served with honor for so long. I mean, really is a record-setting commissioner. I want to wish Larry Ciardella a happy birthday today here in the city of Milpitas. We appreciate you. And if anybody out there listening to me knows Larry, go ahead and shoot him a text message. Happy B-Day. Give him a call, shoot. And so it's just a really, really special day here in Milpitas. Happy birthday, Commissioner Ciardella. And the last announcement I want to make, I'll be very brief, is about the Chief Fire Enforcement Officer. I do want to take just a slight moment to see if there's any support for it. I still have a concern about going from 4 personnel to 3 in terms of the number of positions. I know that folks were really looking at the objective number of fines amounts that was issued by a city memo. And I just want to really share my thought that, it's not just, however our fines for fire prevention are going down, that's a good thing. That means folks are complying. And I think that there's really some professionalism behind it with the position. And so I just wanted to see if there's any support, to keep that position moving forward. I know we approved the budget, but I still believe there's an opportunity to really maintain that fourth fire prevention position. And so that's all I'm going to say. I am asking for no discussion because it's not on the agenda. And so I want to see if there's a majority support here on the council for our public safety and maintaining the regulations of fire prevention here in town. So I want to do a quick hand raise. If there's any support, put your hand up. And if there's any support for it, I'll give it a couple moments. Okay, all right, that's it. I want to keep it going here. Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Sometime early January 2020, Michael Jacobs of Kaiser reached out to me for some kind of partnership, and it happened this April last month. They did a webinar, Zoom, with 35 Spanish-speaking mothers on hesitancy on COVID. They answered all the COVID questions by one of the doctors from Kaiser. So that was really good and very successful. Thank you to Cheryl and Tegan for doing that. And tomorrow there's another one for English-speaking audience. And this will be from 2 to 3 p.m. So I'm inviting the residents, if you still hesitant about the vaccination and any questions at all, please join the team. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, Councilmember Chua. Appreciate you and great information. Thank you. You can share it on Facebook. I'll share your post. Okay, next up we have Councilmember Fan.
The position you referred to earlier, Mr. Mayor, it was one of the many positions that was on the list that we saw the other week. We did discuss it briefly about having the opportunity to discuss it in tonight's meeting. I'm wondering if that is still on the table, if I could get some guidance from staff on this.
I think that's a yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And next up we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the time. I wanted to approach the council on an idea that has been presented by over 40 community members, which is to host a citywide yard sale at the city of Milpitas on August 21st. So I wanted to kindly, this will not take any staff time. It is just to show that we in the city of Milpitas, other cities have done it, and Mayor, I wanted to ask if you could so kindly proclaim August 21st, 2021 as yard sale day here in the city of Milpitas. More information will come out from our community, as this will be a community event. But I thought it would just be good if us as city, we could go ahead and proclaim that day. This is a great way of bringing economic development and for helping inspire communities. So definitely, I hope all of you participate by having a yard sale on August 21st, and more information will come out shortly. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Councilmember Dominguez. I actually think that's a good idea. As the council, I think if there's support for it, and I do support it, let's run it by our legal. We do have a city ordinance in place in terms of these sorts of business activities, even though it's in the neighborhood. We do have ordinances in place that a lot of homes have been regulated with in terms of yard sales and estate sales. And so let's run it by legal. Let's do that the first step here. And our city attorney, if he may, can bring it back maybe with one of his great emails with legal advice on sort of the steps that we can take there for that opportunity. But yes, we do have ordinances in place. Let's make sure we have the community following what we have fairly for each home. Okay.
So Mayor, just
Chris, is that okay?
Just to ensure I understand the direction from you and Councilmember Dominguez, is it just that shall we follow the same protocol that we did last time, where I'll vet the item and then assuming it looks good, it will end up on the list, and then you guys can decide where it kind of falls in terms of the priority?
Yes, I think that's great. I support the council members' idea. Just looking if there are any objections, I suppose, please make it known. I'm hearing no objections, so fantastic. Good idea, council member.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I would like to thank our community, especially Malia and co. Definitely looking forward to August 21st. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Fantastic. Really great seeing all the great ideas from our council. Next up, we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a moment to congratulate the Milpitas High School seniors, Cal Health seniors, and the Milpitas Unified School District adult education graduates. So just want to take this moment. Congratulations, 2021 graduates. That's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just again, just a lovely time of the year here in Milpitas. Heart is full. Heart is absolutely full. Okay, great. I'm seeing no further virtual raised hands during this announcements of future agenda items. Thank you, City Council, for raising and lowering your virtual raised hands. We're moving on here to the announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just be asking one question tonight because we don't have any contracts or development project applicants on the agenda tonight. So we'll just ask the conflict question and not the campaign contribution question. But I'll ask the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda, with the one item being just agenda item 1. And we'll start at the end with Councilmember Fan.
None.
Thank you. Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Thank you. Councilmember Chua.
None.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
Thank you. And Mayor Tran.
None.
Let the record reflect none to the question. Thank you. And I'm happy to read the council code of conduct if you'd like, Mayor.
Yes, please, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Milpitas City Council Code of Conduct: be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language matter. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration, and then the council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Moving on to the approval of agenda. Hearing no objections, I'll move to approve tonight's agenda 1 item. Hearing no objections, the agenda has been approved. Moving on to agenda item number 1, let's receive the American Rescue Plan Act update and provide direction on proposed ARPA investment framework and preliminary ARPA investment plan. And I just wanted to say we are so fortunate, that's the right word. We're so fortunate to be here tonight to have the special city council meeting and even to have the American Rescue Plan. We've all been working so hard over the past year, 12 months or so, to advocate for our community that's been just impacted with public health and economic hardship. I don't think any of us planned for this American Rescue Plan to land in Milpitas. And so as we move forward on this item here, as a city of Milpitas, let's keep in mind really how fortunate we are to even have these funds coming from Washington. With that being said, we have here on the agenda our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Really pleased to be here with you today to discuss this proposed investment plan for the city's allocation of ARPA funding. And obviously, although I'm the one presenting this to you, it has been a very collaborative effort with input from the council, community, as well as working with all departments, and the executive team is here to respond to any questions about specific proposals. Next slide, please. So here's the agenda. I'll walk you through some background and then specific information about the state and local fiscal recovery funds, proposed preliminary investment plan, and then some next steps leading to council discussion. Next slide, please. Yeah, next. So you've heard this before on May 11th. So it was March 11th of this year when President Biden signed this into law, the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA for short. And it's a $1.9 trillion stimulus package to basically counteract the economic impacts of the pandemic. $350 billion is going towards state and local funding, and with $130 billion of that equally divided between cities and counties. So of the $65 billion allocated to cities, $45.5 billion is allocated directly to metropolitan cities such as Milpitas. So that's basically cities with a population of 50,000 or more. And it uses a modified community development block grant formula for the allocation. So Milpitas's allocation is $16,736,815, and we received 50% of these funds already on June 1st, with the remaining 50% expected a year from now, so June 2022. And these funds need to be encumbered or expended by December 31st of 2024. And then if they are encumbered by 2024, for example, for infrastructure projects, they need to be fully expended by December 31st, 2026. Staff has, of course, been tracking the legislation closely, as well as the implementation guidance through multiple channels, including the National League of Cities, weekly webinars, GFOA, weekly briefings, as well as professional association publications and networking with our peer cities. The interim final rule, which was issued by the Treasury Department on May 10th, is still receiving public comment. The comment period ends on July 12th, after which a final rule will be issued. Next slide, please. So again, as we shared on May 11th, just wanted to note that in addition to the funding for state and local governments, there are other sources of funding through ARPA that may benefit our businesses and residents. So for example, there's about $60 billion allocated to help very small businesses, restaurants, and nonprofits. ARPA also extends and expands the employee retention tax credit, expands the Paycheck Protection Program, waives taxes for certain businesses, and also addresses excess business losses. And then our residents can also benefit in a variety of ways through direct stimulus payments, so up to $2,000 in direct stimulus payments, increased unemployment benefits, increased tax credits for earned income and children, healthcare support, paid sick leave, childcare, education, social services, and housing and utility assistance. So there's about $46 billion for utility, rental, and mortgage assistance, as well as unhoused services, $350 billion for domestic violence and child abuse, $39 billion for childcare and Head Start, close to $40 billion for higher education, and $122 billion for schools coming through the state. So just wanted to note this because as we go and discuss the fiscal guiding principles, we want to make sure that we're also looking for other opportunities for our community besides just the local funds. So next slide, please. And so the program goals for the state and local fiscal recovery funds is to support urgent COVID-19 response efforts, basically to continue to decrease the spread of the virus and bring the pandemic under control. It's also to replace lost revenue so as to increase support for vital public services and help keep jobs, support immediate economic recovery and stability for our community, and address systemic health and economic challenges as well. So these goals are important to understand since they directly connect to why contribution to reserves is not an eligible use. Putting aside money for the future does not really support the immediate goal of providing assistance and bringing about economic recovery and stability. Next slide, please. So for the state and local funds, there's basically 4 categories with many overlapping eligible uses across these categories. So for example, the first one, the COVID-19 response category, covers public health and economic recovery and can include services and infrastructure to specifically address COVID-19 impacts, as well as financial assistance to residents and businesses impacted by this pandemic. Now, revenue replacement category, that provides funding in the amount of lost revenue for various governmental services, including community assistance, infrastructure, and other general services. These calculations are defined in the interim final rule, and they allow recipients to calculate the extent of reduction in revenue over the course of 4 years. So recognizing that there may be some lagging impacts, not just in the immediate year. And for the purposes of this calculation, general revenue is defined as excluding utility revenues, refunds, proceeds from debt issuance, or investments, as well as private agency transactions. And for Milpitas, the revenue loss is estimated to be approximately 45 million, so much more than our allocation. Now, these funds are intended to support direct provision of services to the community. This category is the most flexible and appears to be more streamlined in terms of reporting requirements. And again, since the city's revenue losses are greater than the city's allocation, we are proposing to use this category for the use of ARPA funding. Investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So the eligible uses actually align with existing programs, a wide range of types and categories of projects that would normally be eligible to receive assistance through EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund or the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And again, they include a wide spectrum of projects, including storage, treatment, transmission, distribution, water reuse, efforts to address climate change, and also to meet cybersecurity needs. And then the eligible broadband projects have certain specified minimum speeds and require the projects to serve unserved or underserved households and businesses. But again, these kind of investments in infrastructure, or the category that I talked about first, the COVID-19 response, that can also happen under the revenue replacement category. And then the last one is premium pay for essential workers. This can be used to provide premium pay. Essential workers are those in critical infrastructure sectors who basically perform in-person work or interact with others at work and physically handle items handled by others. And the interim final rule kind of emphasizes the needs for recipients to prioritize premium pay for lower income workers. Next slide, please. So this is the list of ineligible uses, which include payment of debt service, replenishing reserves, payment towards any kind of legal settlements or judgments, offsetting or delaying taxes, making pension deposits. So this does not include ongoing employee pension costs, but basically includes anything like a lump sum payment towards unfunded liability obligations. To also exclude any kind of matches for grants if the statute or regulation bars that. And then with regards to the last bullet, there is some ambiguity on eligible infrastructure, but based on an interpretation of the interim final rule and from information in the FAQs, infrastructure is eligible if related to the pandemic or was previously defunded due to revenue losses. So new infrastructure that's not related to the pandemic is not really eligible. Next slide, please. I know this is, I don't know if the slides are actually showing up in PDF format. I apologize if they're a little bit small, but this is the reporting requirements. A couple of takeaways from this. Detailed guidance on these reporting requirements is still forthcoming. At this time, we know that an interim report on any expenditures that occur between date of award and July 31st need to be submitted by the end of August, and the first quarterly report needs to be submitted by October 31st. It is not clear at this point if we will be required to submit a spending plan. However, since we will start expending funds soon, we need to report out on those expenditures, it would be good to finalize a plan in August, and we'll be bringing that back to council. Next slide, please. So on May 11th, when we brought this item to you, council provided input on several investment ideas. There were a total of 39 requests that are included in your packet. Subsequently, we received 24 additional requests, so that totals up to 63 requests. There is substantial overlap between the requests, so it's not 63 discrete items. And there were many common themes around the requests, with multiple requests related to financial assistance and social services for the community, economic vitality, infrastructure, public safety, and technology investments. So the proposed investment framework that we will be discussing with you today includes fiscal guidelines and 5 investment areas based on these requests. And the proposed investment plan is basically, again, around these 5 investment areas. Next slide, please. So here's fiscal guidelines that we're kind of proposing. These are based on the city's existing fiscal policies that are in the adopted budget, as well as guidance from NLC and GFOA. And so these are being presented for your consideration. I'll just go through them. So the first one is identifying and promoting other ARPA or state funding sources to the extent possible before dedicating local ARPA funds. And I talked about that earlier, so that looking for other opportunities to benefit our community in addition to what we have for local investment. Using one-time ARPA funds for one-time expenditures, such as investment in infrastructure or technology with minimum ongoing operating costs. And that goes to the third bullet, which is kind of trying to avoid ongoing general fund commitments, knowing that we will not have the ARPA money on an ongoing basis. So avoid adding additional programs and positions. Avoid creating a structural budget deficit. If we will be discussing later on as requested the positions. One thing to just keep in mind, if we're restoring any services, to look at avoiding creating structural budget deficit, which requires ongoing general fund commitment. And then leverage other agencies as they get funding through the state or ARPA, or they already have funding from other sources. So how best can we work with them as well as our nonprofit partners? And then also leverage existing programs to maximize efficiency when we're delivering these services. We do have, as we'll talk about kind of the proposed investments, we do have several programs in place like our Milpitas Assistance Program, our Rent Relief Program, the Micro Enterprise Grant Program that we've used in the past as a model, so that we don't spend too much in terms of resources and costs to set up new programs. Next slide, please. So based on council input through the budget process, as well as, again, specific input related to this funding, as well as all of the community engagement that was conducted from January through June, through multiple surveys and community meetings and public meetings, we are bringing forward an investment plan that balances the needs of the community and the city organizations. So we reached out to other cities in the region. Every city is basically using the money to meet its unique needs. Several cities are using it to balance their budgets, as we had shared last time we were with you on June 1st. And some cities, not all, are providing funding to the community. So we believe our proposed plan aligns very well with the ARPA goals of providing direct assistance and services to the community, and addressing the economic impacts of the pandemic, while also taking care of the city's needs related to infrastructure, public safety, and technology. So here are the 5 proposed investment areas, to include community services, economic vitality, infrastructure, public safety, and technology. And I'll go through all of these areas over the next few slides. We are recommending a total of 22 programs and projects across these 5 investment areas. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So for community services, we have the first one is rent and mortgage relief. And we've heard from the council for a lot of these assistance programs to look at not just low income, but low and moderate income as well. Like our existing program for rent relief does not include mortgage relief. So it would require expanding the program, but we anticipate using the same fiscal partner to kind of efficiently implement this program. And so we're proposing, if you look at, and you'll see this for all the upcoming slides, what we have is the program and activity, the proposed total funding, the funding that's proposed for fiscal year 21-22, as well as the proposed time frame over which the money will be spent, since we do have several years to kind of expend the funds. So we're proposing 1.2 million of investment in this program over 2 years, so 600,000 in the first fiscal year. Social services, there were a lot of requests related to this. We've seen the need for in this area. And so mental health services, assistance to victims of domestic violence and abuse, youth services, LGBTQ plus services, as well as senior nutrition services, which you may recall were brought forward as part of CDBG, but it was recommended to include for ARPA funding. And so we're proposing, again, over 4 years, 500,000 with 125,000 each year. The third one is low and moderate income assistance. Again, right now we only provide low income assistance through Milpitas assistance program. So expanding that, and also expanding some of the uses, so to provide assistance for digital inclusion, so both access, internet access, as well as devices, classes and programs, as well as utility payments. So city classes and programs, and then utility payment assistance, which is provided right now through MAP. So proposing 300,000 over 3 years, 100,000 each year. For Beautify Milpitas, last week we were in front of you and got direction as to what you were looking for in terms of frequency of events and types of events. And so this would supplement the funding that's already in the proposed budget. So an additional 100,000 over 4 years, 25,000 each year. And then a curbside trash pickup pilot program. So over 1 year, a pilot program. This is kind of a tentative amount. We are working with MSI to kind of figure out what it's going to take to do this, but we'll try to work within this amount. And we do have a curbside pickup now, but there's some community concerns related to how it works. And so we're going to try a different model. This is also based on a council member request. So as you can see, it's a total of 2.2 million that we're investing in the community to help them kind of recover from this pandemic. And the first fiscal year, FY 21-22, we're proposing close to $1 million, 950,000. Next slide, please. So in this area, again, the economy has been hit pretty hard. Our local businesses are hurting. And so we're looking at quite a bit of investment in this area. So looking at several items. First, small business assistance. So related to the pandemic, helping businesses recover from the impacts of the pandemic. We're proposing 1.2 million over 2 years, so 600,000 in each year. And this will build upon what we already did with the microenterprise grant program. Hotel business assistance to help them make their facilities COVID safe. They've been hit pretty badly. We have a lot of hotels in Milpitas, and so looking at $100,000 over 1 year to assist them. The accessory dwelling unit program, looking at an investment of $1.5 million over 3 years, so $500,000 each year, basically to incentivize the building of more ADUs, which will meet a few goals, city goals, so increasing affordable housing options, kind of spurring economic activity with construction, and then hopefully increasing property values in the long term. Main Street revitalization, again, we've got direction from council to move forward with this. We have some money budgeted towards it, but looking at, because we've talked about many different elements and components of this revitalization effort, looking at putting in additional money towards facade improvements, and then some staffing to support that as well. So $400,000 over 2 years, $200,000 each year. Community events, including grants and staffing. We've got some requests to maybe work with other entities to do some community events, could be Main Street or elsewhere. So at this point, it's pretty high level. We would work with council to kind of flesh this out. $100,000 towards to Milpitas Chamber of Commerce to help them work with the business community and kind of help it recover. So that's one time over 1 year of $100,000. Workforce development, again, this is a pretty key strategy of our recently adopted economic development strategy. And again, we have some money invested towards it, but we see a greater need. And so putting in $270,000 total with the over 3 years, but with the first year having $100,000. And then with all of these initiatives, we have a pretty small economic development team. So adding some staffing to get things done as we're putting all these new initiatives in place. And so that's a limited term position over 2 years of an economic development specialist. So again, total of $4.2 million. With 1.8 million, little over 1.8 million in the first fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is the city's infrastructure. So looking at kind of 3 components, we know we have a lot of needs in terms of our infrastructure, a lot of needs in our parks. We'll be coming to you with a draft master plan next week. And we've also done some safety assessments. And so we'll be bringing forward recommendations on kind of which parks will be getting this funding. But at this point, we're putting this much money in, proposing to put about 3.4 million in here. And again, as we know, our needs are much greater than that. So we will need to prioritize where the money goes. Rehabilitation of some public safety facilities, so a couple of fire stations as well as the police building. And then COVID safe city facilities improvements. And this is mainly related to HVAC improvements, so increasing kind of the air exchange, improving the filters, and then also putting in some other kind of partitions and signage and sanitizer stations. So all of that would be about $375,000 in the first year. We would put it all in place. So 4.1 million of proposed funding with 2.3 in fiscal year 21-22. Next slide, please. The area of public safety, 3 items we're proposing to, so we had, if you recall in the adopted budget, we had defunded 4 firefighter positions, 2 police officer positions. The 4 firefighter positions, we did need a FEMA waiver to be able to defund those. So we're still waiting on that. So this is a way to kind of, if we don't get the waiver, we could fund the positions with the 1.2 million for next fiscal year. And if we do get the waiver, then we could fund them for the following year with, associated general fund savings with this money. And then we are proposing to kind of round up the fleet of fire with a new pumper. It costs a little bit more than what's shown here, but there's additional funding elsewhere. So we'll be able to kind of buy a critical piece of equipment. And that is a one-time kind of 1-year expenditure. And then council adopted an emergency management plan recently. And so starting with implementing some of the high priority items noted in there. So 200,000 over 2 years. So a total of 2.2 million, with most of it in the first fiscal year. If we do, again, if we don't get the FEMA waiver, if not, the 1.2 million for the 6 positions will be used in 22-23. Next slide, please. And then technology, we are proposing to invest some money. As you know, we are a service organization. We are here to provide services to the community. So over 85% of our budget is really personnel costs. And so we've never had a HRIS system, which is pretty critical to kind of manage our most valuable asset. And so we are proposing to invest in HRIS and / financial management, because our financial management system is also extremely, has been in place for over 20 years. So we are looking to, we would like to kind of first do a business needs assessment and business process mapping, which is what is proposed in the first fiscal year, 100,000. And the total that we're proposing to put towards this is 3 million over 4 years. Cybersecurity and training, this has been kind of a high priority across the nation and across the world with a lot of ransomware attacks. We have been investing in cybersecurity, and it's just, this would just supplement what we already have funded for it. So we have a lot of things in place, but we feel like this would put us in an even better position with some of the additional things we'd like to do. And then also this would go towards continued staff training. So 300,000 over 4 years with 100,000 in the first year. And then improvements related to kind of the new work environment as we anticipated as we move out of the pandemic and come back on site. We still anticipate having to do hybrid public meetings, provide virtual services, and sort of a hybrid work environment. So looking at the costs of those, 800,000 over 4 years, but half of it in the first year. So total of 4.1 million in technology investments with 600,000 in the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. And this is kind of a summary slide that just shows you a summary of the proposed 22 investments by area. It also provides you with information about kind of the number of council requests by each of the 5 areas. Just wanted to note a couple of things here. Although the highest number of requests are in the community services area, 32 requests, as I mentioned earlier, there are many similar requests from individual council members. Also, there are 6 requests that don't quite fit into any of the 5 areas, so those have just been separated out. And then requests not included in the preliminary funding plan are due to one or more of the following reasons that you can see on the slide. So either they were ineligible for ARPA funding. So for an example, if you wanted to put money towards the reserves, that's not eligible. It could be funded through a separate effort. So there was one request for an intern program, and we already have that funded in the budget. It may not be aligned with the city's fiscal guidelines or the proposed ARPA fiscal guidelines, such as funding ongoing positions, or it may require further policy direction from the full council. So those have not been included. Next slide, please. And so this is we're going into the discussion, kind of following up on the June 1st council direction. So as you had asked us to bring forward a list of positions that were eliminated and defunded in the adopted 21-22 budget. As I mentioned a couple of slides ago, we do have 6 public safety positions. These were only defunded for 1 year. So they are included in the proposed investment plan. And since funding ongoing positions is not consistent with the fiscal policies, we have not included any ongoing positions in the investment plan. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you the list of positions that were defunded at mid-year when the current fiscal year budget was balanced. And this defunding has been incorporated into the adopted fiscal year 21-22 budget. So the 2 highlighted rows show the positions that were only defunded for 1 fiscal year. The other ones have just been defunded on an ongoing basis. Next slide, please. And then this slide shows the additional positions that were eliminated or defunded with the adoption of the fiscal year 21-22 budget on June 1st. And so in order to balance the budget and address the structural budget deficit, 3 positions were eliminated because these positions were determined to be no longer needed, either due to decreased workload or an alternate service delivery model, or because of efficiencies gained through process improvements. So a total of 11 positions were defunded, with 6 of these positions defunded for 1 fiscal year. 1 new position was added, so that resulted in a net reduction of 10 positions. And so this is in addition to the 13.75 positions that were defunded, as shown on the previous slide. So net reduction of 23.75 positions, and of these 8 positions were defunded for 1 fiscal year only. Next slide, please. And so in terms of next steps, based on the discussion we have today, what we hear from the community, as well as the issuance of any additional guidance by the Treasury Department, our plan is to bring forward on June 15th any appropriation actions that are time sensitive. So anything that's needed to make kind of our facilities safe, we would like to bring back to you on June 15th. Then over months of June and July, we'll continue to monitor any additional guidance from the Treasury Department, not just on the local funding, but also on any other ARPA funding. So we can kind of track it and also make sure that we're doing outreach if there's things that our community could benefit from. And then in August, we would like to return to council with an updated investment plan based on the direction we get today on the framework as well as the investment plan, and then also any updated guidance from Treasury. And since the budget was adopted on June 1st, but did not include any of the ARPA funding, in fall, once we have a final ARPA investment plan, we will need to bring the 21-22 budget amendment forward to you. Next slide, please. And so our recommendation today is to receive the update and also provide direction on the proposed investment framework as well as the investment plan. And with that, we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Ashwini Kantak, our Assistant City Manager. Let's go straight to public comment here. Okay, folks, thanks for joining us here this evening. It's a special City Council meeting. But, you know, I think every meeting's special because we do amazing work for our residents. And thank you to our Milpitas family for tuning in this evening as well. You may have caught us on your social media news feed and decided to stop the scroll and tap in to the live stream here on this beautiful day in Milpitas. We're talking about the American Rescue Plan, folks, and we have been sort of granted funds from Washington to assist with the economic and community recovery here in the city of Milpitas. We have guests here, stakeholders in the community members, residents, business persons, and we're going to take the public comment now. And so first up, we have Warren Wettenstein.
Hi there, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, thank you for this time to speak. I'm Warren Wettenstein, Milpitas Chamber President. We're grateful to you for the support of the community and local businesses during the COVID crisis. The Chamber appreciates very much the council members in economic development attend Milpitas Chamber meetings to be supportive and informative by speaking at length during our board meetings. It has been extremely helpful and kept us up to date, sharing information between Chamber and Council about hardships during this pandemic. As you know, the Chamber has suffered a substantial loss of membership. This was a great loss to the community and the Chamber. The Milpitas Chamber was unable to hold public events due to COVID. The Chamber needs to have many events planned for the coming weeks, i.e. business workshops, International Barbecue Festival, provide exposure to cultural chambers, such as the Taiwanese American Chamber of Commerce, Northern California, Silicon Valley Vietnamese American Chamber of Commerce, Filipino American Chamber of Commerce, and others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Warren. All right, next up, we got Drew Mitchell.
All right, good evening, council members. My name is Drew Mitchell, and I'm the president of SVBTA, Silicon Valley Business Travel Association. Our organization represents a local segment of business travel professionals who are part of a worldwide organization, GBTA. GBTA, also known as the Global Business Travel Association, is the world's largest professional association representing the $1.4 trillion business of travel. The global membership includes 9,000 plus business travel members from every continent. Collectively, members directly control more than $345 billion in annual spend on global business travel and meeting expenditures. SVBTA represents almost 200 locally based industry buyers and supplier members with more than $1 billion in annual spend pre-pandemic. In addition to my role as SVBTA, I'm also a corporate buyer of travel.
Thank you, appreciate you. Next up, we got Makiko Barrett. And
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Makiko Barrett, and I'm the Vice President of Silicon Valley Business Travel Association. In addition to that volunteer position, I also work for a technology company as the Director of Procurement and Travel. My company is located at the border of Milpitas and San Jose, but we book the majority of lodging in Milpitas. So after a year of lockdown, we started traveling again. In May, I organized a 3-day sales leadership meeting in our San Jose office. I was hoping to book a team dinner at the Milpitas Hotel, but every venue I contacted was either closed for events or required an affidavit signed by the event organizer verifying that everyone's vaccinated or tested negative. Unfortunately, our HR department told us I'm not allowed to ask that. So I am here to support the business travel hotel community, and we hope to book the meetings and events in the city of Milpitas, unlike the last time I had to go outside.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Next
you.
up, we have John Ag. John Ag, you're up next. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. It's not evening. I'd like to address a specific subject within the council agenda package in today's council meeting. My belief in situations such as our present economic situation, when the city is challenged with extremely tight budgetary limitations, and when there is an opportunity to receive additional financial resources, such funds should be first deployed as an opportunity to build a more vibrant and long-lasting future for our city, not a patch or band-aid. Page 7 of the council attachments lists under economic vitality 7 line items. 2 of these are item 4, Main Street revitalization, and item 5, community events. These 2 specific activities are exactly what the city needs to start build a better economic and thriving future for our community, particularly in the Midtown area.
Absolutely. I hear you, John. Thank you. Next up, Voltaire Montemayor. Thanks, everybody. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, this is Voltaire. I'm with a few organizations. Anyway, the word rescue, take it, not leave it. The loss of revenue of 45 million against the coming 16 is negative. In other words, we have to be conservative, spend wisely. And I know it's like make it running, make your car running, you buy the money they gave you, buy gas for the purpose of the 2 years span. And that's just half, I think, of the 16. So in other words, there are 4 main ones to spend, about 4 million each. And yeah, we'll survive. The council and the staff have the integrity, I know. So thank you. Good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Kunal Khandwala.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kunal Khandwala. I'm involved with the advocacy effort of the Reconnecting Silicon Valley Task Force and also with the SVBTA. I am the director of sales of your local Holiday Inn and Suites. I just quickly wanted to share some statistics that show the impact that COVID has had on local hotels across the region. From 2019, with a robust 74% occupancy, $210 rate, your average similarly poised hotel was earning 7.2 million, contributing to the city's TOT of $1 million. That, for 20 hotels, comes to about 20 million. Compare that to last December for the entire year is down to 37%, leading to your revenue of 2.5 million. And that's only a TOT of 7 million, down from 20. We need more than 100,000 for each hotel for really getting out into recovery and supporting the revenue for Milpitas City.
Thank you for the reminder of the challenges we face. Next up, we have Inderjit Mundra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and city staff. I just wanted to take about another minute to finish off the message that Warren started off, which is the chamber was unable to hold public events due to COVID, and the chamber needs to have many more events planned for the coming weeks, like business workshops, barbecue festival, exposure to cultural chambers such as Taiwanese American Chamber, the Vietnamese American Chamber, the Filipino American Chamber of the Valley. And there have been also many multi-chamber activities in the past, which will come back. This is a critical time to help our Milpitas businesses to move forward and grow. This is a time for new businesses to be started in Milpitas. To accomplish this, the chamber needs financial support of $250,000 for events to be done in coming months. The chamber humbly looks forward to your continued support at the worst of times and for many good years in the future. Thank you.
What an evening it is. We're just getting started here. Next up, we got Rick Wakita.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Welcome.
My name is Rick Wakita, and I lead the strategic planning for the Reconnecting Silicon Valley Travel Task Force, and I'm a longtime member and past president of SVBTA. I'm currently a global travel manager at Informatica, headquartered in Redwood City. Our goal is to create and maintain a grassroots advocacy partnership between the business travel industry and the city of Milpitas, Santa Clara County, and other local governments in Silicon Valley. The objectives of the task force are to provide information and updates on the business travel industry to help educate local governments on the importance and economic impact of business travel and meetings to their local communities. Business travel and meetings provide jobs and are critical to the economic health of Milpitas. A significant amount of revenue is generated for the city from the transient occupancy tax, since most of the hotel stays are by those traveling for business as opposed to leisure. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, Rick. Next up, we have Leslie Makashima.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Makishima, Senior Sales Manager at Sonesta San Jose, right here in Milpitas. Situated in the center of major tech company headquarters and offices, you can imagine the impact business travel has had on our property. Pre-COVID, 80% of our revenue came from corporate businesses, driving high occupancy throughout the week. And though we've survived a shutdown, pivoting our strategies to remain open, we continue to struggle with the high operational costs of complying with health and safety standards while working with minimal staffing and limiting our ability to capture business at full potential. Revenue has dropped significantly and ownership combats continuing to spend more money with little to no ROI. Use of financial resources would help provide the support we need to hire more people, allowing for bigger opportunities and ultimately more TOT for the city. Though we are optimistic that the tide will turn, we, along with so many other hotels, need the assistance from the city to get us through this storm. As a considered recipient, know that we would use additional funds as an investment to help shepherd a strong economic bounce back for the entire city of Milpitas. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Jackie Romero.
Thank you so much for the time. I just want to ask in regards to Measure F, the integrity of Measure F, the promises that you all made that public safety would not be cut. Are you all in integrity with Measure F? As the California drought will only get worse, it's imperative that we prioritize fire prevention and enforcement. We need a liaison to educate our Milpitas family about the risks of fire. We also have invested a lot of money in making sure our chief enforcement officer has been trained effectively. So I Googled his name and I found a photo of Vice Mayor Carmen Montano with our Milpitas local hero, Eric Emanuel. He's not just a chief enforcement officer, he is a Milpitian, he's family. So I think you need to look at really what's going on here. How can we make sure that we keep our city asset working for us, our family here in Milpitas, because we don't.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I do a point of information here. Measure F is not on the agenda tonight. We are here for the American Rescue Plan. I really do appreciate the comment, but we are here for the American Rescue Plan. I do appreciate your comment. Next up, we got Julie Carrera. Hopefully I said it right.
You did. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. And most people don't get that right the first time. Good evening, council members. My name is Julie Carrera. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for the new Element by Westin in Milpitas. Our property has been delayed in opening due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our original opening timeline was summer of 2020 due to a number of factors, including a mandatory 8-week shutdown, which caused contractors to move to projects where mandates weren't as strict. On-site COVID exposures, along with the lack of laborers willing to risk their health on the job site, were now scheduled to open this coming August. I'm here tonight to show my support for the Milpitas hotel community, and I can't think of a better way to demonstrate my support by requesting your support of the proposed investment in the future of Milpitas-based hotels like the Element. Our properties need as much financial assistance as possible while restrictions and limitations are negotiated throughout the pandemic's recovery period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. We appreciate you. Weston's in the building tonight, virtually. That's awesome. Next up, we have Lisa Shenfield.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Shenfield. I work for a business travel company, Direct Travel, near Campbell. I am a founding member of Reconnecting Silicon Valley Task Force and also an active volunteer and member of SVBTA, where we have been working towards creating tangible efforts to support the local hotel recovery. But hey, in all of this, there is some good news. There's some fresh signs emerging. Business travel will not be grounded much longer. The American Airlines Chief Customer Officer recently said that half of their top 50 clients will resume travel by the end of the year. She said the first steps are getting offices open and feeling comfortable. As a travel agency, travel management company veteran, I'm here to show my support for the Milpitas hotel community, and I'm requesting your support of the proposed investment in the future of Milpitas-based hotel properties. There is a multiplier effect out there for other businesses like restaurants, car service, and florists, travel agencies. Let's take every step towards financial recovery. Better.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Next up, we have Michael Anderson. And if folks are here to speak, put your virtual hands in the air. I'll look for you. Next up here, Michael.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tran and Milpitas council members. My name is Michael Anderson, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Silicon Valley Business Travel Association, and also a member of Reconnect Silicon Valley. My day job, I'm a Senior Operations and Account Manager for Bowers Intelligent Transportation. We provide bus and large vehicle transportation services for Bay Area employers throughout the region, and they are primarily engaged with removing employee vehicles from our roads and reducing our collective carbon footprint throughout the region. As you've heard from our colleagues here tonight, we represent multiple industries that are related to corporate business travel, and we receive regular feedback from our members, including those based in the city of Milpitas. We've had several suggestions that we establish and maintain regular contact with your committees and all the stakeholders involved. And we welcome your ideas and suggestions on how to provide you with information and perspective from our members in such legislation and policy making decisions.
Thank you very much. All right, we're still doing public comment, folks. I want to again welcome our guest from our community stakeholders, business persons, representatives. Really, we love doing business here in Milpitas, and we are all together throughout the ups and the downs. So I want to thank all our guests and visitors for being here. We appreciate you. Okay, looking for any further virtual raised hands. The public comments have been great, everybody. I really appreciate all the information and the advocacy for your purpose. Okay, I'm just going to give it a 1 time, 2 time, 3 times. I don't see any further virtual raised hands. We're going to bring it back to the dais here. I kind of want to kick off the item here post public comment to really say that tonight is the start of the American Rescue Plan here in the city of Milpitas. Looking forward to hearing from my colleagues about some of the areas they're pushing for. But I just want to remind folks again, hey, we're just getting started tonight, as our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini, presented. There was a timeline of events and a lot of follow-up. And I think the purpose of tonight is just to get started. And we will circle back around multiple times to kind of go towards an agreement on the council here for the funding destinations, if I may say, since we have a lot of hospitality in the hotel folks, we're going towards the destination. Okay, great. I'll go ahead and begin here. I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation from our city staff. My question now is, looking at some of the positions that have been quote unquote defunded, and I see that there are 2 police officer positions that could be that could actually benefit from the ARPA. I think folks know me. I've never been one to say no to more public safety and police officers. Never been one to say no from my first day in this business. But I just want to also be consistent with our discussions previously prior to tonight. And I feel like I'm sort of a broken record here, but it was my understanding that our police department is sort of at a capacity with new police officers and our ability to provide the training. And so I see tonight, one of the recommendations possibly is to sort of fund 2 of those positions. Can I go to Ashwini for just some information as to the reasoning?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mayor. And so what we're proposing is those positions, those 6 positions, the 4 firefighter and 2 police officers, were defunded for 1 year, just fiscal year 21-22. But the 4 firefighters are kind of awaiting the FEMA, whether they're going to accept the deletion or not, or defunding for 1 year, right? So because those were funded through the SAFER grant. And so what we're proposing is, if we do get the waiver, we do not fund the 6 positions for the reasons we talked about as part of the budget. So the capacity constraints for the police officers and for the 4 firefighters, the sort of delay in the ambulance rollout. However, if we don't get the waiver, we could fund just the 4, not the 2 police officers, and then fund them in 22-23, which results in a general fund savings. Or we could fund all 6, and then you will still get some savings from it, because we're not going to fill them right at the start of the year. So you could still get some savings, which could then go to our budget stabilization reserve. So there's kind of a couple of ways we could approach it. Some of it will depend on the FEMA waiver. But either way, we could use it to fund 1 year of costs related to those 6 positions, whether it's in this coming fiscal year or the following fiscal year.
I like what I'm hearing. And it's my understanding, and I want to thank our city staff for the preparation for tonight. The over $16 million for ARPA is really split into 2. And so I just want for the public's information as well and knowledge. These 2 police officer positions would be funded in the year 2 of ARPA, and following that year, the city would have to really go general fund. Is that correct?
That's correct. And right now for fiscal year 22-23, funding for those 2 police officers is already in the forecast. So that would actually translate to savings in the general fund if we fund it through ARPA.
Absolutely. I love the way that sounds. Thank you so much. I am better for that information. Thank you, Ashwini. I see we got the Chamber of Commerce here. I believe we have, I believe Interjit is the representative. If we can get Interjit here, IT can help them connect. Since they are on the agenda item, I want to ask what they intend on doing with the funding that's proposed here tonight. Who do we have from the Chamber of Commerce?
I think, Mayor, I see Warren, but I don't see Inderjit anymore.
They left already? Okay. No, I'm kidding. Hey, we'll take Warren or Inderjit, 2 great persons.
Hi there, this is Warren.
Hey, there you go. Hey, Warren. Hey, I just want to check in with you. Hope you're well. You know, there is proposed funding for the Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to ask what sort of activity.
What we're looking at is a lot of the small businesses. You know, we've been helping businesses whether they're members or not. Here, let me open the microphone. We've been helping members whether they're. Hang on, let me hang up the phone. Okay. Whether they're members or not, we've been helping everybody. We've been working closely with Lendistry, with SBDC, with the economic development, with Alex and his team there, besides city council members. And what we're looking at doing, we straddle a couple of the categories regarding community resources. It looks like we can bring, if we get funding, we can look at bringing back the International Barbecue Festival, which we ran for several years. We can look at, we've been doing some business workshops, which we can do. We are also anticipating that there are going to be a lot of businesses, whether they're home-based or whatever, you know, there are going to be a lot of businesses that are going to need assistance to get going. And the Chamber has, you know, 50, 60-year reputation for helping businesses do that. We can put together a more defined plan on how money would be allocated. You know, at this stage, there's an awful lot that we can do and we would like to do. And, you know, we set up discovermilpitas.com. We did not limit it to Milpitas Chamber members. We opened it up to all Milpitas businesses. It's a pictorial click and it's promotion. It looked like you had a half a dozen people from the travel industry. They would be more than welcome, if they have not already listed, to list themselves there. And if they want to promote, they can promote there. What we're targeting is community people. We are also looking at the possibility of doing a job fair. And the job fair would be one way of helping to get local employers to hire people, but also there are a lot of people have been laid off, and we'd like to help jumpstart that when possibly the end of the month, which is very short timing. We would consider we're looking at doing a job fair. We have initiated a survey that we have emailed out to a lot of people, and we started making phone calls to find out if there's interest in the community by employers and also by people who are looking for work. It would be really nice to find Milpitans to find jobs locally in Milpitas without having to commute over to Menlo Park or Mountain View. So we would be happy, given a little time, we'd be happy to provide a budget on what the funds would be used for, Mayor and City Council.
Warren, thank you. No, that's great to hear. I know we're not giving out blank checks through the ARPA. I know that we'll be asking for more details and to understand the programming that you're looking to fund through ARPA. And I know that you'll provide that information at the right times as we move forward. I am very serious about understanding where the funds are going, the accountability, the programming, the activities, and measuring of the dollars spent, of course, and sort of the outcomes and outputs. And so I know that the Chamber of Commerce will really deliver there.
We will provide value for the deliverables.
Yes, thank you. There you go. That's a great word.
We're not looking for a handout.
I know.
We have line item, we have line item, our budget, we have stripped things down. We have cut costs where we could.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But I guess the important thing is we've been trying to help businesses throughout this past year and a half, even though we haven't had any revenue. We didn't have our crab feed. We just had the crab feed, but we didn't have festivals. We didn't have our awards banquet. We didn't have our casino night. Our workshops, a lot of the items.
You're telling me, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
I definitely enjoy those events.
But we would be happy to provide you with, with more delineated use. The funds are not just going into a general fund.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
You get value.
Thank you for reinforcing the niceness of your organization. And I believe our chamber is going to get a lot of support here with this. So I just wanted to
we appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Just wanted to have words come out of my mouth to really ensure that's communicated. So I appreciate that. I know we have a city council representative with the chamber board, and I hope that Councilmember Chu, I see you. And I know that the connection and the relationship is there. I want to touch on the International Barbecue Festival. That was the last time the city formally gave sort of a valued support. A lot of it was in kind when the International Barbecue Festival happened. I remember volunteering at the beer tent, pouring beer for residents. That was a great time. But I think going forward, I'd like to see our council work with the chamber. I know the vice mayor has really taken a leadership effort with bringing back the Art and Wine Festival. And I think that is something I want to really advocate for in support of the vice mayor and her leadership on bringing back the Art and Wine Festival. Our community is diverse, and I don't think, I know it's the International Barbecue Festival, but hey, I could name a lot of cultures that don't eat barbecue. And I think Art and Wine Festival, from what I'm hearing with the vice mayor, would be more inclusive, and it would bring back a tradition. I believe a chamber might have been in support of in the past. Over on McCarthy Ranch, remember that? We used to shut down McCarthy Ranch. We used to get down over there with Art and Wine. So
the barbecue festival was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. It was like a year of planning. But it was effective, and we had a lot of representation. We even had a car show as part of it.
Yeah, I remember. I totally remember. Yeah, but I'd like to see, if this money is coming through the city of Milpitas, more input from Councilmember Chua as the representative, and really, I think the vice mayor may have some ideas as well with bringing back a tradition we've had in the past, Art and Wine Festival. So
we're fully open to all that.
Okay, great. That's it. Okay, fantastic. All right. I want to take a moment to turn the page here. Thank you, Warren. I appreciate you. Can we get the representative from the hospitality industry? I know there's a number of folks. I got a couple emails. Who is the leader of that? I'm not sure. Put your virtual raised hand up if you're leading the hospitality industry this evening. I'd like to call upon you to inquire about some of the asks that I think I'm hearing this evening for the benefit of our Milpitas. Who do we have? Who is the lead representative? I see a virtual raised hand. Kunal. Hello, Kunal. How are you?
Hello, Mayor Tran.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? So,
Good.
I'll be efficient with your time. Thank you for being here. We
Of
love
course.
our visitors. I can't tell you how important the hospitality industry is here in Milpitas and for our revenues in City Hall. Our presentation has a proposed amount, which I stand with our city leaders and staff. But I do hear your voices, and I never ignore voices. I want to ask you, how much more funding are you asking for, and where are the dollars you're requesting to go?
I can absolutely answer that question for you, Mayor. So just to reflect on, the number, so everyone gets a proper idea of, where that 100,000 matters. Assuming our current revenue, right, just on a monthly basis, 150,000. It used to be 600,000. So we're a fourth of where we need to be. This is the distance. This is the gap we need to cover, right, with the recovery effort. The TOT used to be 85,000, approximate number for our kind of hotel. It is currently 18,000 for the month. That's the TOT revenue for the city of Milpitas from a single hotel that's comparable to us. That's a huge difference. And when we distribute the 100,000 into 20 hotels, assuming we get 5,000 for the month, just put those numbers into perspective. Potential TOT income from one hotel would have been 85,000. It's 18,000 now, and we will receive 5,000 as the grant money. It's such a drop in the bucket. That's the point we're trying to make. It's such a drop in the bucket. We're barely able to hire one individual for 1 month with that additional revenue or additional support. I cannot give you a specific number. Can it be 100,000 will make a difference to us? Yes, absolutely. We will be able to provide more safety. We'll be able to host more events in a safer environment, continue the cleaning protocols, which, we are really struggling with, of course. But more importantly, bring back so many of those furloughed and laid off employees and hire newer ones as we build up capacity. One of our representatives did highlight the fact business travel and leisure travel is making a comeback. But on behalf of all the hotels, I can assure you, and I know this might sound very direct, we are not ready. None of the hotels in this market are ready. We are not a leisure market. Florida and Texas are enjoying their time right now. The hotels are doing just fine. Why? Because they're leisure. We are not. We're Silicon Valley. We're only known for our conventions, for our business travel mainly. So till everything starts picking up, we're going to need this gradual ramp up. And 5,000, while we really appreciate the intent, it's just not cutting it enough. We need so much more as support.
Thank you. And Kunal, let me ask you a follow-up question. I appreciate your sharing of the business environment that your industry is in. In terms of the federal funding, not all dollars go through cities. Some federal dollars are going sort of straight to industry. Are there other federal dollars through the federal stimulus that your industry or your business is applying for?
So if you are referring to the PPP, it was not a good experience or pleasant enough for any of our businesses to pursue. It was a very tight fight. We had to apply and reapply several times. We were still in the waiting list to get those funds. I mean, again, not to be direct, while Jared Kushner can get the money, a struggling small business hotel like ours cannot. So the PPP intent was great, sure. Not everyone actually got the benefit. So we were struggling with whatever 30% occupancy we're maintaining. We're putting in our own hours as managers, and we cannot even hire any additional staff. And that situation is not changing soon enough. It's really, really slow because we're so business travel dependent. And if it gets busier, I'm afraid we're not going to be ready to welcome them back. And that's going to put, it's going to put Milpitas in a different light. And not just that, the revenue that TOT was bringing to the city of Milpitas for so many of its various activities and projects is going to be much more delayed.
Thank you very much. I I appreciate your straightforwardness. I really do. I kind of share a similar communication style, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Kunal. I know that tonight is a start, and what we're seeing from the staff recommendation may not be the final. It's sort of a draft, but I think most of it's there. We'll see if there's any areas that the council would like to, kind of take more looks at. So again, the last for me here, thank you, Kunal. The last for me here is before I go to my colleagues is public safety. I'm still in support of the chief fire enforcement officer position. And I think at this point, if there's any opportunity, it may be through the ARPA. What I'll say is now, since we're in the agenda item, is this position has been productive for, I think, 5 years. The really activity and production of it has been consistent from the information I've been provided. I know the amount of penalties and fines through this position has declined, but maybe that's because the fire prevention activity is happening. Obviously, if you're going to find somebody 1 year, the next year they'll have it correct and there's not going to be a fine. And so, this is a fire prevention sort of position, among other things they do. This is not a fire fine penalty position. And so I think based on the city memo, that's a positive thing to see the penalties and fines decline. That means people are being safe out there with hazardous material and other fire codes. I continue to be consistent with my support of this position going back to January 2017. Can't believe it. Sounds like yesterday. And I really feel that I know there's reorganization and things happening, but when times were good, we had the opportunity and really blessing to have this position. And obviously our budget went down. And so of course there's going to be hard decisions, but I just think somewhere in this ARPA, and I don't think we may be able to figure it out tonight based on the financial management piece of it, but I think there is an opportunity for the position to be maintained. This is a good position that's been here year after year after year after year after year. And so really the question I think I would like to focus on is the funding of the position, because the position as a position is a good position. And I've seen firsthand, for whatever that means to folks, I've seen firsthand the positive impact that this position has had. And I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to do no emotional case to let folks know, but really, if you want to do simple math, we have 4 personnel for fire prevention. And if we do not fund this position, we're going down to 3 personnel. And that's a 25% decline in fire prevention personnel. It's simple as that. I mean, and so really, most of what we're doing this fiscal year here, moving on into the next fiscal year, is more financial management rather than organizational restructuring. So I hope my colleagues will consider the value of public safety and the value our residents have put behind it through Measure F, which is different. But I think through ARPA, we have an opportunity to have a bridge funding really from recession into hopefully the economic recovery. ARPA is the bridge funding from the recession into the economic recovery, budget over budget, year over year. And so I really appreciate everybody. I know we tend to think differently, which is the nature of how this business works. But I just want folks to hear me out and know that I'm being very objective. And I'm really thinking about our residents and fire prevention. I'm proud of each person. I'm proud of myself for doing their best. But regardless of how folks feel about it, I do want to give my respect to everybody. So Thank you for your time. Next up here, we got Councilmember Chu.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I have a question for Ashwini, please. Thank you, Ashwini. On your slide, I think it's 3 or 4, it's about the federal grants to several services.
Yes.
The first one is 46. The reason why I'm going to ask this, because we have most of the council members really support rent relief, mortgage assistance, not just for the low income, but to moderate income, and also widen the scope. Can you please put up that slide that breaks down the other funding? Because I'm looking at other source of funding for some of these our local funding.
Yes, and we actually have some more detail. If you're looking specifically for kind of rental assistance, there is a specific slide that I can pull up as well with more detail.
I just want to see the one that has the breakdown, you know, 46 billion, 350 million.
That one, that we want, the second after this one. Yes.
No.
Oh, which one did you want?
Oh, there, it's there under residents.
Right.
It's at the top, the 4 items below, at the bottom, from the bottom up. So 46 billion is for utility, rental, and mortgage assistance, because we have on your recommendations, staff recommendations, based on council recommendations as well, is the rent relief for 1.2.
Right.
The federal has 46 billion for that. And number 3 is the moderate for utility payments, which is under the 46 billion.
Right.
For utility and mortgage assistance. So we have number 1, number 3, and there's another one. Where is my other one?
Some of the social services too.
Right. Yeah, the child care, which I think is part of the social services. My question is, how do we help our residents to tap on these grants?
Yes, and that's, I think the Councilmember Chua, that's a really good question. We are trying to keep on top of all the guidance as well, because some of these we don't know yet how they're going to be distributed. They'll come through sort of, you know, existing programs. So because they don't come directly to us, the information on these is not really that clear. So over the next couple of months, we're hoping to kind of track that through, you know, industry organizations, advocacy organizations, and then bring that information back to you in August as well. So some of these areas were a high priority for the council. And because it's unclear how much of those millions and billions will actually come to Milpitas community, we're still proposing kind of some local funding. And then if we are able to, you know, our residents and businesses are able to access some of these other funding sources easily, then we could always adjust, you know, what we are putting towards it.
So that's my logic is, how can we, it's very difficult to make decisions when we're not clear on what's coming. And my bottom line is, we need the effort, we need the assistance from our city, from your executive team and the city staff, to make sure that the residents that are eligible get this funding.
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then we can hopefully release some of the local funding and do more for our city. That's where I'm coming from.
Yes, and we totally agree. I mean, that's one of the top fiscal guiding principle. That's what we'd like to do. It's just we don't have enough information. And then as we've seen with some of the sort of national level programs. You know, our businesses apply for things and they don't really get the funding in time, or they're not able to, even though we've, Alex and his team have been really trying hard to track everything and provide information, but you're competing with, you know, so many millions of businesses across the nation similarly.
Exactly. So we just have to be vigilant about it and be more aggressive. So in that sense, I think one suggestion I probably could say is like the rental relief one, instead of having it for 2 years, maybe make it 3 years. So while waiting for that time, DD up the 1.2 and make it 3 years. So we have that time to figure out if we can get some more funding we should get some more funding from the federal, because they already allocated this amount for this type of services. And I would say the same thing for the rest of the ones that we identified, 1, 2, and 3, I think. Okay, that's all for, oh, another question. I just want to be clear. Okay, I'll ask that later. That's my other source of funding question. Thank you, Mayor Tran. Thank you, Ashwini.
Sure.
You're welcome, Councilmember Chu. I love your questions. Thank you so much. I want to take a moment. I forgot to ask a point. I didn't have a point of inquiry earlier, but if we can have someone from the city manager's office or the fire department, I want to ask about fire prevention within public safety. I mentioned earlier that we're going from 4 personnel to 3 based on the operating budget we recently approved. And clearly I'm advocating for this 4th fire prevention professional to continue to serve our residents and business leaders. I want to understand a little bit more about the duty or the activities from our fire prevention professionals. Right now we have 4, including the Chief Fire Enforcement Officer. Can someone in the city staff side respectfully provide information to our public on how many sort of checks, structures, businesses, or other uses that our fire prevention qualified professionals perform? It could be in the hundreds or even thousands. And we rely on these 4 personnel to provide this really mandated service for our public safety. Can someone share with me over the last fiscal year, this past one, or the one that we're in, excuse me, how many inspections have these professionals performed in total? I want to understand better the workload if we're going to go from 4 personnel down to 30. I just want to go very objectively here. Who can I ask? I know this information can be readily available. Steve, let me go to the city manager. That's the right route. Who can we talk to about this?
Yes, Mayor. I'm going to ask our deputy city manager. I think, Walter, that might be out of our budget books, but if you can go ahead and.
That is correct. Good evening, Walter Rossman, Deputy City Manager. So we described this a little bit in the budget document. We'd be happy to bring this to the public. So thanks for the question, Mayor. Before I start about the impact of the number of cases we looked at over the last fiscal year before pre-pandemic, is I think there's a slight nuance here. We have 4 budgeted fire prevention inspectors, and of which 3 are filled and 1 is vacant. And so we are in the process. I was talked today to the acting fire chief. They submitted a requisition for hiring this vacant position. So once this position is filled, we actually have 4 people again doing the same type of work, which is equivalent or overlaps heavily what the chief enforcement officer was doing. They actually had to work like this for the last few months because the officer is unfortunately on leave at this time, the incumbent. The cases, I'm going to just let me quote.
Inspections. I mean, that's the right word. How many inspections has our city performed within this fiscal year.
I just need to quickly look it up. It's difficult to do this online.
Right.
So during this, we did about 3,000 inspections for life safety and hazmat, construction, state mandated annual inspections, and COVID-related inspections for the last 12 months.
So what's the precise number? 3,000?
About 3,000.
About 3,000. Those are the total inspections from the fire prevention inspectors.
And that's the first month of the pandemic. So that's from March to February.
Okay, what about the last, going back 12 months, if I may request that information?
I can get back to you. I would have to look at the spreadsheet quickly. So if I can get back to the question. I can get back to you with an answer quickly.
So that 3,000 inspections was for a 2-month period? Is that?
No, 12-month period.
12 months.
From March 2020 to February 21.
Okay.
And of those, I can.
I can wait. I'll wait.
Yeah, let me look at this. Okay. Fire code inspected during the pandemic. Let me just read this to you, then maybe that's the easiest. During
Well,
the
if it's the
pandemic,
information I'm looking for, I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, during the pandemic, the focus for the position for the fire code enforcement officer shifted from fire code inspections and compliance activity, which were previously about 400 cases, to the enforcement of county health orders and fire code inspections, which were about 210 cases. So the workload dropped. And the reason why the workload dropped, we had businesses which were closed, and obviously there were less fire inspections which had to be done. But I think the key message I wanted you to take away here is we still have the same amount of people which we're going to deploy. There's less workload in the division right now, and the fire chief can speak a little bit more perhaps to this. But we definitely have the same. There's no impact to the public safety. There's no impact to the service level. It will be consistent with just a reorganization of the complement of staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate you. And the data is the data. I just, I'm looking at 3,000 inspections over the past 12 months, which have really been COVID months. And once things reopen, furthermore, that 3,000 number is going to go up. What was the pre-COVID? I know I'm digging deep here.
Yeah, one more thing to add, Mayor. It's not just the fire prevention inspector positions we have in fire prevention. We have 2 hazmat inspectors, which are also frontline employees. And we have a total of 13 people, I believe, in the division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know our hazmat inspector is pretty awesome, and I know how important that work is firsthand, actually. And that's why we have these full-time employees to perform these preventative measures, because we've seen just all across America, hazardous material being mixed and just very bad outcomes. I'm not going to get into it, but we got 3,000 inspections. I want to keep it simple. We got 3,000 inspections during COVID. Prior to COVID, I would carefully assume that we have even more inspections, especially as I think things come back. And so I'm just thinking, I know we have a 4th funded fire prevention inspector position, but I've seen positions this year and in the past where certain positions haven't been filled, and this 4th fire prevention inspector position hasn't been filled for a very long time. And I just want to keep, keep the consistency with the personnel that we do have. I know the chief fire enforcement officer is one position, but just looking at if the inspections continue at this rate over these next 12 months, that's 3,000 inspections minimum. And we have 3 personnel that are on board. Until I see a 4th person hired, I'm not counting that person. And so that's 1,000 inspections a year for each.
No, I think
inspector.
no, not necessarily, Mayor. There's two items I want to mention. COVID-related inspections are reducing. They're not there anymore. We're in yellow tier. We were the only city in the county which did COVID-related inspections, and the county will have to take those over, if whatever is left to be done. Secondly, the hazmat inspectors also do inspections, so I would refrain from just taking 3,000 divided by 3. It's done by the entire complement of staff. Some inspectors obviously do more frontline work.
I'm aware of one hazmat inspector on our books. How many hazmat inspectors do we have?
Two.
Okay, and they're both filled?
I believe so, Chief.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're currently staffing those positions with personnel that we've onboarded in the last 2 years.
Thank you so much. That's very appreciated.
The other thing I want to add, Mayor, is the one vacant fire prevention inspector position has been vacant for 2 years. So again, we're in the process of starting the recruitment. We just had to wait for council action first. Based on that, we're going to have the same complement of filled positions doing less work potentially initially, and eventually we may ramp up. We'll see what happens with the economy.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. One, I think the hazmat inspectors are called hazmat inspectors for a reason, and they're looking after all the sort of gases or liquids or however the hazmat is placarded, if I may say. And I think for those folks to get outside of their specialty is possible. I just love hazmat inspectors focusing on the placards and those sorts of things they specialize in. And I guess another thing is just really the continuity of service until we get a fourth fire prevention inspector, which we haven't in 2 years, as stated. I'm afraid that there's going to be a sort of a lack or gap or of services where it really is a sort of a step back. And with ARPA, this position, I'm not really advocating to fund this position for the next decade. I want to really channel in on what ARPA's purpose is, which is a bridge or a temporary funding of services for cities, in this case, public safety. And I want to advocate for the funding of the chief fire enforcement officer for at least 1 year until we can get the fire prevention inspector fourth position filled. I know that if we're losing one personnel, then there's really work there that's been happening year over year for 5 years that other folks are going to have to pick up. And so I would like to request for the council to consider at the end of this discussion for this agenda item, a minimum, if not 1 year funding for this position through ARPA. When we lose personnel, and we can dig deeper into the entirety of the 5 years of work that this position has accomplished for our public safety. We can do that, but I'm not going to ask to do that tonight. So I appreciate the time. Let's keep it going here. Let's go. All right. Next up, we got the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. You had asked a question earlier about the Chamber of Commerce, so I just wanted to remind you that Dennis King is part of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I know that our chamber works very close with them, and they collaborate. They do a lot of really great things for economic development. But the other question I wanted to ask was, can you go to slide, Rashwini, to slide, I think it was page 13. Oh, no, wait. Page, I think it was for the, not the investment areas, but the community service. Oh, yeah, the community service one. I think that's on page 15, or slide 15. I noticed that when I looked at the ones that impacted, it had direct services to the residents, and then the indirect services. I noticed that for infrastructure, we have 4,136,815, public safety, 2,200,000, technology, 4,100,000, and it totals up to 10,436,815. And then for economic vitality and community service, that one is only, well, that's only 6,400,000. And to me, what's more important is the direct services to the community. And that means economic vitality and community service. So I'm wondering why it's reversed. And I understand that the infrastructure is important, public safety is important, and technology. But when we gave our list, you mentioned that there were 62 requests or 63 requests. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those that we asked for were basically for the community. And it seems that now it's flipped over, and we're doing more for city things instead of direct services to the residents. I know that we wanted things like a performing arts center. We just kind of threw everything there, but the city told us that we couldn't do that. But I was wondering why, because it was a capital improvement project, but I'm wondering why we already have a community center, but way back there was a plan to build upon it, to make it larger. So it's not like it's not like it's a new capital improvement project, because from my understanding, you said that any new capital improvement project could not be funded. So I'm just wondering why even the softball facilities, it's not new, it's just being renovated, or it's not a new project. So I'm still a little bit perplexed why some of those direct services to the community are not being funded, because this is an opportunity where we have this opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, where we're getting funding from the federal government for innovative, creative ideas for our community. And it just seems that most of it is going for infrastructure and technology. And even the technology part, I had recommended that we have broadband in our city, but I know that it's expensive, but I'm thinking maybe more of a kid zone, having some hotspots for maybe a kid zone area for broadband. And I'm not the only council member that had requested that. So I'm just concerned why most of this, instead of going directly to the community, we're spending more money on things that are city related. So those are my concerns. So I want to go, if you can go back to page 15 on the slide. For the number 3, low and moderate income assistance, digital inclusion, recreation classes and programs, utility payments. I think 300,000 is too little. I think it should be at least 500,000. Because like I said, my priorities are for the community, for direct services. And so I would like to increase that to 500,000. 3 years is fine. Rent relief, mortgage, I think that should be increased to 1,500,000. And you guys can play with the numbers depending what the city council wants. But I think that's that those are my recommendations. And then if you can go back to economic vitality slide.
The next slide after council.
Yeah, the next slide. Okay, so that one, I know we heard the hospitality industry come before us. So I'm wondering, is that part of the number 7 hotel business assistance?
Yes.
Okay, so and so I did hear he said that they're good with 100,000. So I just wanted some clarity on that one. The accessory dwelling unit ADU, it's a good program, but it's the highest one on there. And I'm wondering, wouldn't it be better to move to do it for 1 million instead of 1,500,000, and that 500,000 put it in some of these other areas where you have more, for example, the number 9 or number 12, actually number 12, because that one is only 270,000. And the whole point is to try to get workforce development. And for those, if the public doesn't know what workforce development, can you expand on that? So that way they'll know what it is.
Sure, Vice Mayor, and I'll actually defer to Alex so he can walk you through what we already have and then what we're hoping to kind of expand on our partnerships with NovaWorks and NextFlex. So Alex.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Alex Andrade, Economic Development Director. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Ashwini Kantak. Yes, workforce development is the process of attempting to get people educated and trained for new and emerging technologies. And given the pandemic, and we've heard from representatives from travel and hotels earlier, that's just one sector that has been suffering. We need to make sure that we are able to provide that training to our residents so that they can compete, so they can make good salaries, so they could stay in Milpitas and afford rent and or pay to buy a home. So we're currently engaged right now with NovaWorks. They are our workforce investment board. They are partnering with us, the Office of Economic Development, on a 2-phase program that we're calling COVID-19 Workforce Recovery Program. Phase 1 is looking at our local employers. What types of skills are they needing, not only today, but in the future? And then we're also looking at our residents. What types of skill sets do they have? What gaps are missing? Phase 2 will come and take a look at the assessment of those surveys of the business community and the residents. And then we will develop workforce training programs, career counseling, and making sure that there's an opportunity for career ladder jobs in the future. That's phase 2. So the funding that we would be able to use is for training programs, job fairs in the future, and making sure that we partner with MUSD through our memorandum of understanding that was recently approved by council and the board of trustees in regards to the MOU for MAP. So those are just some of the initiatives that we would move forward with that are very much needed at this time.
Yeah, and Alex, so thank you for that. And see, that just reiterates or reinforces that workforce development is so important, especially because many people were laid off and now they have to learn, or many of the businesses left the state, and so they have to be retrained. And I feel that we should invest more money in there because that's really important. And the other part of that is that a lot of low-income families, it would be great to have, that was one of the ones on my list, is that to have a summer youth program for kids that live in a low-income household, so they can help the family unit, help the parents with, to put in some income for the family, and for a teenager to have a job, it does so many amazing things. It shows them responsibility, and it would help them with support the family unit. There's so much that goes into that. So I would like to increase that to at least 500,000 or 300,000. But I really feel that one is important. And these other, I mean, if the public could see what our ideas that we put on them, we had a whole bunch of really creative, innovative things that would really, but it's not possible to do that. But the executive team, they know where we're coming from, and I do agree with them. Most of our ideas were for the community, and that's why I feel that economic vitality and community service are the two main ones. But we only put 6,400,000, and then yet that the city infrastructure, public safety, and technology is way above. It's more indirect services to the community. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I'd like to see some little bit of tweaking, but overall it's good. I thank you, Ashwini, for that presentation. But just I think with our city council comments, we'll come up with a good consensus. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I concur with your support for the workforce development. I'd like to propose freeing up some money through the elimination of the curbside pickup pilot program. I just feel that if we're going to do a pilot, it's not just a one-time deal. We're looking to do a long-term program. And I think with the curbside pickup, I have concerns about the maintenance of it going forward, not just with the funding, but with the regulations. I have been in Santa Clara at a point where they had everything. Residents had all their waste out in the street. And I'm not sure about how our city is going to enforce the cleanup of it after. I can imagine a bunch of nails and sharp objects really in the street, going into our waterways, going into vehicle tires, nails, hazards to children who may be in the street. I am fully confident in our current dumpster days. I know it's called neighborhood beautification. That's a little better term for it. But I think we could free up some money by really thinking twice or three times about this curbside pickup program. I just don't see it sustaining for years. Once we do it once, we're going to have to do it really forever. That's the expectation of residents. Let me ask from our city manager's office, Ashwini, this pilot program, is it for one neighborhood for the curbside? I mean, 100,000 is that for the whole city? I'm not sure.
Good question, Mayor. So this was an idea from one of the council members. And so we, as I mentioned, it's kind of placeholder funding, and we're trying to work out with MSI what we could get for it, if it's a geographic area or if it's a shorter period of time, right, that they could do it. And then that would basically inform if we wanted to redesign our current curbside program. So that was the intent.
Absolutely. It's all positive, no doubt about it. Yeah, I know we're going to hear from our residents if one neighborhood gets it and the whole city doesn't get it. And I want to avoid that dilemma. And so in the interest of increasing funding to different areas such as workforce development, I'd like to propose right now to strike through the line item for the curbside a pilot pickup. We already have neighborhood beautification. So I'd like to make that decision now to free up some money here. Let's raise our hands if I have any support. We need a majority of the council to free up these funds for other programs. 1, 2, I'll see your physical hands up. Okay, that's a majority.
Mayor, I'll just go ahead and announce who has their hands up, just so that the public, if they're not able to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
We have Councilmember Fan, Councilmember Chua, Vice Mayor Montano, Mayor Tran, and
physical hands. We're doing physical.
Physical, or are we doing
physical?
Okay, so then we have Vice Mayor Montano.
What was it? Can you repeat the question again? I think I'm confused. Is this to eliminate the curbside trash pickup program, or is this to support it?
This is to eliminate it so we can free up the funding for things like workforce development and other.
Mayor Tran,
yes.
We have to have we need to have our input as well. I know you gave your idea, but I haven't heard from anybody, or I haven't spoken yet on this.
Okay, absolutely. Since we're talking about this particular line item, the curbside pickup pilot program, let me ask my colleagues to lower their virtual raised hand in general. I'm sorry, Councilmember Chu. I'm doing my best here. you know, you got all the virtual hands up for different reasons. So thank you. And so now, if folks, let's talk about the curbside pickup. Now, if you have comments on this particular line item, please raise your virtual raised hand. Thank you. Next up here, we have Councilmember Chua.
Mayor Tran, regarding the reason why I put this up there on the list is this is really from the residents. Some of our residents, they do not patronize using the bags. I know we have quarterly, they have an option, all the residents have an option to use the small or big bags. Some of our residents are having a hard time. Is there a speaker on? I think I can, oh, there you go. Some of our residents, especially our seniors, or other physically challenged ones, they cannot use the bags because they cannot put their trash inside the bag. So they also have a hard time. So what it ended up doing is they're not using it. So my proposal is for a pilot for 1 year. And the reason it's 1 year is then if it's very successful, then we probably can negotiate with Milpitas Sanitation to reduce the number of bags, the frequency of the bags, maybe from 4 quarters to 2 quarters, and have a once a year curbside pickup for everybody in the city. That's what I think we need to support this for our residents, because they're the ones telling me that they need it. They have it successfully in San Jose, and you're right. When San Jose Council tried to remove it, they said no. The residents said no because they're using the service. We need to provide this service to our residents. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Chu. And I agree with you. We need to do our best for our residents, especially those that may have a hardship with waste disposal. I think objectively, the fiscal impact has to be considered. And if we work towards a citywide neighborhood curbside pickup, I can't imagine the cost of that. And MSI is already struggling financially. The waste industry is struggling financially. In our city, I know that we are unable to do a citywide curbside pickup. And I'm just thinking ahead here as to how this pilot is going to be realized into an actual service. I don't think our city has the capacity for a long-term curbside pickup plan. And MSI, we've had discussions with them for a couple of years now. I know I've met with the owner, and you know, one of the reasons we finally did dumpster days was because MSI was unable to help us. They were unable to be generous on that front, particularly. And that's why in working with the vice mayor and the city manager and the city council, including yourself, we finally did dumpster days last month. MSI can't even put out dumpsters for us at the neighborhood beautification. And we've asked them multiple times, and I'm with you, Councilmember Chu. I love you so much, but here's the thing: they're not going to do the curbside, and they didn't even want to put the dumpsters back there for neighborhood beautification. So I'm with you so much. You know, I care about the residents just as much as you do. It's just we are in a pivotal moment right here where funding is limited, and just the long-term impacts. I think by recouping this $100,000 and striking through this line item, we can put it into other areas that are also going to benefit our residents. You know, I think my grandmother, she lives over on Escuela, and she's unable to bring out large waste to the white bags, waste bags, the 4 waste bags a year. She's unable to bring that out herself. She'll give me a call And even if there's curbside pickup, I know my grandma's not going to bring out the dining table out to the curb at all. And so my grandma's going to have to call me regardless. And I think we can get some volunteers, and we can have our young people volunteer to help our residents bring out large items to the white bags 4 times a year, or load it up in a truck, or get volunteers to take it down to Goodwill and get the tax write-offs. I am distraught to recommend the strike through of this line item. It hurts. But I just am hearing other council members, vice mayor, on how we can, be more impactful with the dollars. And I think this is the type of conversation we're going to have tonight for many different things. I didn't really bring forward too many items myself. I'm here to support others. I'm giving my piece of the pie to everybody here, including yourself, Councilmember Chu. So I'm with you, and this is the business at hand tonight. So next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the time. I definitely want to thank staff for taking all of our ideas. I know it's been a collective effort on this council, so I applaud every single council member for just being very diligent and listening to what the community wants. I echo the sentiments of Councilmember Chua. In fact, yesterday I was down on Main Street and I had at least 50 people come up to me at some point during the day and talk about curbside pickup. And so I think that this is an issue and a conversation that has been going on for a while. And I do trust that new leadership on this council is going to have those positive conversations. We won't know the cost until we try. And so that's why it's a pilot program. I also echo the sentiments of Vice Mayor Carmen Montano in terms of direct and indirect services. So I don't feel at this point there is enough data to swipe the curbside pickup because we haven't tried it. I do believe our residents would appreciate that if we tried it versus just eliminating it and not trying it and continue to do things the way we have. I think one of the things that makes this council so amazing is that we're all thinking out of the box and we're really trying to bring innovative solutions. But how are we going to know those ever work if we never try them? So we do have the money. The money is before us to do direct service, which I believe is in the best interest of our community. And that's what I will be advocating for, is the direct service element to this, where we don't need to look at that specific program. I do also echo some of the sentiments that the Vice Mayor said in terms of other areas having more money than direct services. Because this money was really intended to float our community during these hard times. That's the intention, is to rebuild. And so that HR line item has, I believe, like $3 million in it. So my recommendation would be taking it out of that line item, not taking it out of the curbside pickup program. I think direct services is something that we should not touch. If anything, we should increase because those services will go directly to what Milpitians have been asking us and what they need help with. I also echo workforce development, where I do believe that needs to be increased. I do believe in programs like the Speedy program, they work. I'm a prime example of that. I started working when I was 14 years old. So I echo the sentiments that the Vice Mayor said. She definitely is right. We need to increase that allocated line item. I believe I would like it increased and to support my colleague, but also I do support the idea. I think that we need to invest. If you ask people what do they need in recovery from COVID, average Milpitians will say they need a job and they need a house. They need somewhere to live. Those are the two elements that they really, really need. And of course, they need their everyday necessities, which I echo some of the sentiments that Councilmember Chua said. There's other resources out there, which I know Sharu is doing an amazing job. I actually got a call today from Kaiser, and I have to give her credit because the amount of work that is coming out of that position is being recognized and it's being seen by other people. And so that feels good, right? Where it's like, oh, thank you. So this council made that happen because we invested money in that. That was a brand new position and it's been going up and down, but we finally made it. We made it work. So I echo the sentiments and support the vice mayor in increasing some funding for workforce development and maybe adding a youth element workforce development program. I would suggest to take it out of not direct programs, which for me would be the HR line item, those areas. I think that's really, really important. I support the ADU model program at the capacity. I just want to make sure that it's for low income folks. That money goes into low and middle. I don't even know what that's defined because it's being changed so much. But the purpose, I think it's really important with the ADUs is because we need to reach those RENA numbers. And those RENA numbers is going to take multiple projects to get there. And ADUs is the fastest streamline to provide housing. So this kind of housing really helps those who are moving back into the workforce and helps sustain a roof over people's head for the working class. And so that's been shown research over research. And so I want to support those programs because they're direct service. If we would have to take money out, I would kindly ask that we take it out of the technology, the allocation and technology. That's where I think there is some funding there that I would feel comfortable with moving it over into that direct service area. And so those would be my recommendations with the conversations that we're having today. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll try to point information to our assistant city manager. Point information. So this $100,000 proposed for the curbside pilot, curbside pilot, I'll call it the curbside pilot. What are we actually getting directly from $100,000?
Thank you, Mayor. And like I said, we're working with MSI right now. So we will come back with an updated sort of number as well as what the details, right? And I will ask our Public Works Director, Tony Anda, to chime in because he's been talking to MSI about some potential options.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Like our Srini just mentioned, we are working with MSI to really parse out what we can really get from these numbers here. It's still early in the process, but some of the numbers that they've thrown out to us and some of the options that we're still looking into are still need to be decided. So if we had a little bit more time, we'd be able to bring some of these items to the table and then have some discussions with them about what we really can get with this extra money that's going to be added to the table to speak to some of the items that Councilman Chu talked about earlier.
Thank you. Yes. I hear. Thank you. Yeah, and so we're talking about direct services, and I think we don't have any type of metric whatsoever coming from this $100,000. If MSI is going to provide this curbside pickup, then either they will incur the cost, or our city is going to incur the cost through our general fund. And so I'm just looking at the ARPA dollars here, $100,000. We can still do the curbside pickup pilot at Councilmember Chua. I think as I drive by the Great Mall, I see a lot of customers spending their money and paying their sales tax. I'm very hopeful, knock on wood, that the mid-year budget will be one we can celebrate. And so I don't want to strike through. Let me correct myself. I don't want to strike through your idea. I just want to use these dollars in the short window while we can. We can always use general fund dollars sometime in the future, sometime for the direction of the council for this pilot program. But I think with these ARPA dollars, we have to move very swiftly. I highly doubt that MSI in our city, and I pray we do, but I just, based on the experience working with MSI over a couple of years now, I don't see MSI coming into an agreement with us in these next couple months or so. And so the idea, we can continue it. I just think with the ARPA dollars, we have a window. And if we can leverage the ARPA dollars into what we have before us, money that will go directly to things like workforce development, that would make more sense on a timeline. And so I want to continue to advocate to withdraw the ARPA dollars from the curbside pickup pilot into other programs we see before us. And I do want to continue to explore fully the curbside pickup pilot. And good ideas will always remain, good ideas will always happen. And I think that the curbside pickup pilot has certain questions, but it's undoubtedly a good idea. But it's just really the timing of the funds I'd like to take advantage of, respectfully. Next up, we have Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. I don't want my comments to be misinterpreted as, you know, I don't see certain programs as necessary or should be prioritized or anything like that, but rather how it fits into ARPA and the purpose of receiving the federal dollars for relief and recovery as it relates to the COVID pandemic. Can staff briefly just go over again what services can be paid for with these dollars?
Sure, Councilmember Fan. Can you bring up the slides, please, Mike? So Councilmember Fan, I talked about these 4 categories for state and local funds. And one of the categories is the revenue replacement, which again, as we've done the calculation, our revenue replacement, the dollars, the loss of revenue is much higher than what we're actually getting as our allocation, which is not the case for a lot of cities. So for us, it happens to be. So we're going to use that. I think you have to go back some. We're proposing to kind of use the revenue replacement category, which is the most flexible, because it's kind of very general, and it says it's for, you know, to kind of make us whole, and it can be used for various government services. And sorry, maybe I just need to go to the slide number, Councilmember.
Well, as Ashwini is doing that, I want to remind my colleagues that we are on the topic of the curbside pickup pilot. And once we come to sort of a conclusion among the council, then we'll move on to the rest of the ARPA. Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to, it was slide 8 that had the 4 categories. And so these were the 4, Councilmember Fan. And again, there's overlap between these categories, but the second one that you see, revenue replacement, again, it leaves it pretty general. So basically the way we're interpreting it now, based on all the interim final rule, as well as the other guidance that we're seeing through NLC and GFOA, it says it's flexible. It can be used for direct and indirect services. And then really the constraints are that you cannot use it for the ineligible users. So if you could go forward, I think it's just one slide. So the only restriction that we see now is we cannot use it for these purposes. But other than that, it's pretty much wide open. And that's what we've been kind of, as we look at all the different areas, this is what we've been using as our guidelines.
Okay. So I guess specific to the line item at hand, if we're justifying it with ARPA funds, with revenue replacement. For me, revenue replacement is more relevant when existing programs are funded by ARPA, and without that, it wouldn't be funded otherwise. In this particular scenario, it's hard for me to see the connection between existing revenue that was lost as it is a new program. If that makes sense. I'm not saying that the program shouldn't be explored, but as this is tied to ARPA funding, I believe that there's merit in the program, but it should come from a different funding source, and perhaps not necessarily through public resources entirely either. The way I see it is it's somewhat of a private sector issue. It's something that could have been brought up in selecting the vendors to work with the city in the first place. But obviously we've moved past that. I do think that an opportunity comes up every time a rate adjustment is asked of us, where we bring parties to the table and discuss new terms, but ultimately I don't think that ARPA funds should be tied to this. It is a great program, and I feel like there are partners that can help us accomplish that. I'm not sure what the avenue is to explore that, but me personally and objectively, I sense a disconnect there. So those are my thoughts on that specific item. And if there's support for not funding it, I will also support that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Fan. Thank you very much. I think really trying to move this discussion along myself as well. Another consideration I think the council and our city should have is the funding and the guarantee of the money. This $100,000 is a placeholder, is a term I heard. And if we cannot come into an agreement with MSI, then where does this money go? Do we have to return it to Washington? If we cannot come to an agreement with MSI to fund the rest of the project, or are we liable to fund it ourselves? There are other line items that are recommended tonight that are it's guaranteed money that's going somewhere and that's going to be spent. Looking at the finer details of ARPA, if we're not spending this money by a certain date, I feel that we're liable to return the money and such. That's another aspect that we should look at every single line item, every single proposal or project tonight in that lens as well. And I'm just looking at it from the business part right now. And maybe I can ask Ashwini just to further develop the discussion. If we don't spend this money, what happens to the $100,000?
So Mayor, we would bring back additional information before the plan is finalized. So again, we're hoping to get some feedback on all of the items today. We will go back and kind of work on it and bring it back to you in August with additional information for some of these items that again are pretty high level. So we would like to work out more details. This is one of them. And as I mentioned, we've looked at the guidance so far. There's nothing about when a plan needs to be submitted. So I think right now the Treasury is basically saying, here's the guidance, kind of come up with your plan, and then submit for expenditures, right? And of course, there's that risk of what if it's not eligible. So we want to, before we bring you a final plan, we want to kind of follow up on all these different line items and then make sure that we are, our finance director is kind of connecting, and maybe Lauren, you can speak to how you're involved in the IFR calculations effort, and then also staying very closely connected with some of the other organizations that are interpreting the guidance. Lauren?
Hi, good evening. So yes, each week we're listening to the NLC, the National League of California, National League of Cities webinar on this subject. Also, we're following the GFOA webinar on this subject as well, Governmental Fiscal Officers of America. We're also working with the League of California City Senior Policy Analysts to develop the revenue calculation model. So we are working very closely with subject matter experts and trying to follow information on the regulation as it gets published. Also, we're reaching out to colleagues in the county as well. Also, last but not least, as a part of our FEMA reimbursement, the consultants are helping us on the reimbursement for ARPA. So we are connecting them with them weekly to follow the issue. So we have a lot of different channels on this subject.
Thank you so much. So I think we're all in agreement. I think we have a mutual understanding that you know, we're going to do our best to have the money spent and expensed and have the accounts paid and received and everything. And I just want to bring that perspective up so that as we head towards the end of the meeting tonight at some point, I don't think we're not close, but at one point we're gonna end the meeting tonight. And I just want to make sure that, you know, we're gonna put money where it's gonna be spent day one. You know, I want the money to be spent as soon as it can. One day it's gone into the community. And I'm going to be looking at every line item to see if that's the case, just fair and equal. If there's an item that I think this one is one where we don't have a destination for the money, you know, I have concerns. And so next up we have Councilmember Chu.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Are we going over the list now, or are we going to discuss each one line at a time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Are we going through it one time, and then what are we doing in terms of?
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer your question. I think this our city staff has presented the list, and so we're going to raise any concerns we have with any of the items, objections, so to say, and if there are no objections to certain items, then it may not need to be discussed. I brought up an objection to this curbside pickup pilot, and so we're discussing it at this moment. As soon as the council comes to a concurrence, then we'll move on to any objections you have for any of the other items and projects. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, and we want to make sure, you're welcome. And so we want to make sure everybody is heard. Councilmember Chua, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the list now, if that's okay.
Well, we're gonna focus on the one line item here first.
Oh, okay. So I'll wait until everybody's spoken on this item.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. It's certainly a challenge to preside over a meeting. And so I want to thank my colleagues for allowing me to guide this council one item at a time. Next up here with the virtual raised hand, I appreciate the order. Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So the bottom line is this American Relief funding. It's really the people's money, and Councilmember Chua brought up a good point that the seniors, they're probably one of the most neglected populace in the city, or actually just overall. So I would go ahead, since it is a pilot program, I would be in support of that. And I do agree with Councilmember Dominguez that, again, you know, at it goes back to, it's the people's money, and we should be making these decisions that go directly to them. And because of that, I'm going to be supporting the pilot program because it's mostly affects the seniors, and I think that they need to be assisted. And I do agree with Dominguez with that some of that money should be taken out of the indirect services that is mostly for city programs or city. And that was the technology one. That funding could come from somewhere else. But I think the staff will do the tweaking. We just, right now, we'll just tell them what we want to increase. And I guess we can find out more how much though, and until we balance it out. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. You know, I'm gonna have to agree with you. And maybe I can ask Councilmember Chua for a point of inquiry here. This curbside pickup pilot, is this for seniors solely, or is it for the citywide? If I think if it's for seniors specifically, I have to be in support of it, and I think it would be more. It would make more financial sense to only serve our seniors with this curbside pickup. Let me check in with the proposer, Councilmember Chua. Maybe I need to get more information on this item.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. It depends of what the discussion will be from Ashwini and Tony with Milpitas Sanitation on how they can accommodate 100,000 pilot project in terms of, I'm looking at just a one-time event. And actually my initial thought is for everybody in the city, but because of the limited funding, I'm more realistic and say, what can Milpitas Sanitation accommodate for 100,000 in terms of a pilot project? That's what I'm looking at right now.
Thank you very much. Point of information for our Director of Public Works, Tony. I believe you're the one who may be in communication with MSI. Do we have a cost estimate for a one-time event, curbside pickup, citywide?
Great question, Mr. Mayor. The numbers we have are very preliminary for a citywide event, but there's still a lot of logistics that still need to be worked out. So it's not a number I can comfortably share right now.
Thank you so much. Let me ask if any of our city staff, I know we've looked at other cities' models. Do we have a cost estimate of the city of Santa Clara and how much they spend a year, or how much that costs of services, the value? I know it may be in your waste contract you have established, but do we know what their cost is for their curbside pickup citywide?
We do not have those numbers. Go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, so I happened to work there before. I can't tell you how much it costs, but I can tell you that it's a separate charge on each utility customer's bill. So it's paid through the ratepayers through a separate charge, which you pay for every biweekly billing cycle. It was about 50 cents or $1 per bill, but I really have to verify that.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, the reason why I'm asking is not to cause difficulty. It's because I've sat here over the years and I've seen so many different proposals go forward, and the sort of basis or foundation for a lot of these ideas weren't all the information wasn't all there. And I'm just asking the basic questions of the foundation for this item because I want to see it happen. I don't want to see this item go forward and then evaporate. That's not a good use of time, and that's why I'm asking these questions, because I want to see this happen, but there has to be sort of data behind it. It's got to be data driven, and all the questions I've asked aren't hard questions. It's just we don't have the information or the data. And I'd hate to see this item go forward. And I'm going to support it because I like the item. It's just, is it really realistic? And we don't even have the cost of it. The fiscal impact is the #1 thing, and we don't even have that. The residents are watching. This is not excellence. Excellence is having the data. And I'm going to hold the council accountable for that. And the council has been excellent with so many things. Not 100%, no one is, but this is the level of excellence I'm asking from my colleagues and myself, first and foremost. And so I do this out of love because I want to see your great ideas happen. If you have a great idea, I'm going to support it, and I'm going to make sure it has all the pieces to it. And so I think for this item tonight, I'm going to support it, Councilmember Chua, but we got a lot of work to do, and I'm here to work with you, work for you. Anything I can do for you, I will do it because I think you're a great leader. But we need the data to drive this. And I'm looking around the Zoom. It's a pretty interesting site. And so I will go ahead and, be accountable myself and be there to support this and to work on it because it's about the residents. But we need to, I think, do a little more. So next up, Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much. At this time, I move to call the question. So I want to move to do a vote in terms of procedures so we can close this conversation. It sounds like the discussion on the floor is to keep the funding where it's at for the line item for the sidewalk pickup program. And at this time, it sounds like, and please, Vice Mayor or Councilmember Chua, please help me trying to remember what it sounds like consensus and majority.
Yeah, point of order. I think.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Point of order, please.
Point of order is, let's vote. Call the question. I'm calling the question. It's voting time.
I'll do a point of order here. Pardon me. There's a consensus for the curbside pickup pilot. And so there's no need to do a question.
Actually, there is, because your recommendation was to take out the funding out of this line item to put it into the workforce development program. And so that is still a pending. So per your point of order, the calling the question is actually on the procedure to not eliminate the funding for this program, but to take it out, to move the recommendation and direction to staff to move it from the technology. I believe it was the HR line item, or is it the 3 million? And so I just want clarification for staff and direction, because I think we're all confused.
Thank you so much. I just stated that I'm not going to be objecting to the curbside pickup pilot program.
Okay, so I want to clarify the direction for staff, which it sounds like the majority is asking to move funding from the technology allocation into the workforce program, because I want to make sure that Vice Mayor Carmen Montano's request to increase that funding in that line item also happens in this conversation.
Okay, great. I'll do a quick point of order here just so that we can have some order here. So in terms of the curbside pickup pilot, that discussion has concluded, that topic, I should say, has concluded. That item remains. Now, Councilmember Dominguez, the floor is yours to discuss any other item you'd like.
At this point, Mayor Rich Tran, per my prior statement, I just want to make sure staff, that direction to pull out the funding from the technology allocation funding from that HR line gets put into the workforce development program, and that we increase that program to at least 500,000, which I believe that's what.
point of information, Councilmember Dominguez, let me ask you, what amount are you seeking to withdraw from the HR line item?
The difference between what's proposed before us and 500,000 to push it up to 500,000.
230,000.
Yes. So from 230 to increase it to 500,000 and then move the difference from the HR line item into the workforce development line item.
Right. So right now we have proposed 270,000 for workforce. So we'll take 230,000 from the HR line item to put towards it.
Perfect.
Thank you. Let me do a point of information here. I just want to make sure before we go to a vote, what the impact is to the HR line item and what the impact is to the workforce development line item. I just, rather than just move the money, I'd like to ask, what is the impact to each?
Sure, Mayor. And like I said, there are certain line items here that we've kind of put in an estimated amount. So for the HR one, because we've, for technology systems, we've generally moved from on-premise systems to more software as service systems. And so for the HR system, for the first year, we were planning to put 100,000 to kind of do the business process mapping and functional needs assessment and do a RFP. And then from year 2 on, kind of enter into a contract for the system, which would pay for several years. So what I would assume, and I'll ask our IT director to jump in, but what that would do is it would buy us less years of the system as we move the money. And again, because we haven't gone out with the RFP, we can't, this is an estimate based on sort of prior work we've done. So Mike.
Yeah, Mike Lou. Yeah.
Speak to it.
Thank you. I'm just trying to learn. Thanks.
Yeah,
hey, Mike, how you doing? Long time no see. I know you've been in the background. Welcome.
How's it going? Yeah, as far as the application, the HR application, we are seeing, we went out and kind of look at pricing about a couple of years back. And as far as the current customer size that we're in the market, a lot of the applications are moving towards, like Ashwini mentioned, towards an hosted or application in the cloud. So the upfront cost will be very minimal. It'll be a higher ongoing cost or consistent higher ongoing cost. So what the dollar amount, we wouldn't have to invest heavily in the upfront to pay for an on-premise application. So it can be spread out evenly throughout the life of that contract.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of the funding, your department has requested X amount of money. If we were to move money into a different department, really, would that have a significant impact on the line item itself? Are you going to be able to fulfill your request, or are we going to have to be looking for some other dollars to make up that margin?
For the first couple of years, we probably don't need to worry about or focus on that, but the ongoing depends how long the contract will be extended out. So we, like Ashwini mentioned, the first year we're going to do process workflow and study, and then release an RFP. Then from that point on, we can kind of go back and know what's the true cost is. And also with the HRIS, after the study, we can look at, do we really also need the financial system? That's where the major expense will also be too. So there's a couple of variables that we don't know right now, but we placed that dollar amount or requested that dollar amount, assuming that we're going to replace the whole system, the HRIS system and the financial system.
Thank you. And I know we're looking forward a number of years, more than 2 years, and ARPA is really about 2 years maximum. I want to make sure, like I said previously for other items, that I think that it would be in the best interest to have this city spend the ARPA dollars as fast as possible into the community and our city government, by the way, which I love. I want to ask you, I know you submitted your request for X amount of dollars as on the presentation, but in terms of the next 2 years, what amount do you see being actually spent?
Mike, could I just, as you're thinking about the numbers, Mayor, just a couple of clarifications. So we did look into if we could pay for like something like a SAS model. Can we pay for, upfront? Can we encumber it for a certain number of years? And it seems like that would be eligible. So technology kind of investments are mentioned quite often in the ARPA guidance. And the other thing, I know there's been some discussion about direct and indirect services, but things like the HR system or, other technology improvements are really critical to us also providing direct services to the community, which is kind of one of the reasons we wanted to invest in this type of system, but haven't had the general fund dollars for it. So that's why we kind of put it on the, on the proposed list. And we should be, with the 3 million, should be able to get the system in place. It's just how many years, and that I don't know, Mike, if you can kind of share a number, but it's going to depend a lot on what the RFP asks for and what quotes we get. And again, which is why I think coming back to you, I mean, we get the risk, but there is some tweaking of this plan that will have to happen for some of these kind of items. Mike, do you want to share any kind of number?
Yeah. So just for a rough estimate, the HRIS system alone was, and this was about 2.5 years ago, it was about 350,000 annually. That's excluding the financial system, which you include payroll, account payroll, general ledgers. So there's a whole long list of modules. So imagine you multiply that HRIS system by a factor of 8 in terms of subsystems and stuff like that. So you estimate about $2.something million, but this is like a rough estimate until we do a workflow assessment and then see what we really need to replace with our current system. But that's the ballpark that we're guessing.
Yeah, it's the ballpark total sum. I'm looking for the first 2 years, software as a service. It kind of goes on just the software itself, on an annual sort of cost. And so I'm kind of trying to ask some hard questions to dig into what are the actual SaaS expenses for 2 years, licenses or whatever it may be. I don't think it's $3 million. And so my priority tonight is to get dollars out into the community ASAP, rather than fund something down the road, because in 5 or 10 years from now, how are those dollars going to help our city government or our community, more so the people that need it? And I do support the item. I just am trying to gauge the amount. And I think from what I'm hearing or not hearing, we can lower the amount for this HR line item even a little further. And I'm having a hard time putting a number out there because I'm not hearing anything, any estimate as to how much this line item will cost within the next 24 months. That's why this meeting is getting interesting. But let me ask you this, Mike, sir.
Sure.
Let's say we had this software as a service, and it's pretty interesting. I hang out in Silicon Valley. I see all these software as a service, all these startups, and I'm like, really geeked out about it. An existing software as a service that's out there, one that we may be interested in, how much would that cost over 2 years?
Over 2 years. So like right now, we're actually in the process of working with a police department doing a software as a service as well for our police record management system. So normally that system will come in at $1.3, $1.4 million on premise. As a software as a service, we are investing, excluding implementation costs, about $300,000 annually, and then it's spread out because of the 6 years contract, so about $200,000. So you can see it's about 1/5 of the cost, excluding implementation, because in terms of resources that whether we use in-house or get additional resources to implement the system. On our financial and HR system, we do have many interfaces with payments and everything else. So it's a lot more complex system than the records management system, but that's just give you a reference point.
Thank you.
In terms of how much. So I would say if we're gonna sign on HR and financial, I would say at least $800,000 without the first year, and then about the same annually going forward with the financial and HRIS.
Thank you. And my last question here for Mr. Liu is, when we get this new software as a service, what is the sort of lifespan are we expecting to use the new software as a service?
Well, the great thing about the software as a service is assuming you select a relevant company that's going to last, but the updates and everything else will be automatically maintained by the vendor. So as long as the vendor stays in business, normally we review the life cycle of products after about 10 years from government. So it could go, yeah.
Great, awesome, thank you. I want to go to Ashwini now. Ashwini, I believe you wanted to say something.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. No, I was just saying, so Mike gave the costs of the, kind of the annual cost, but then the implementation cost will be pretty significant for this, which is kind of why, again, we put the 3 million.
Yes.
If we take out 230,000 at this point, we don't have detailed quotes to say if it's gonna, kind of not make it feasible. I think we could make it work. We may just not be able to fund like year 3 or 4, and we have to then use general fund dollars for that.
What is the cost estimate for implementation?
It could vary depending on if we allocate, right now, a lot of the smaller projects, we kind of ask staff to do dual task. So they're actually doing their day-to-day task, plus running a project like testing and some. And due to that, sometimes you do have delays in terms of, projects going on because everybody's busy with their daily tasks, and testing or implementation another big project would be a slight at risk in terms of asking staff to do multiple tasks, especially the project management side of it is not what staff are doing on a daily basis. So it's like a lot of training and learning a new process. But if we were gonna go out and get extra additional outside help in terms of project management, you're coming in at $150, $200 an hour to work with the city on some of those project management.
That sounds about right. And so we don't have a cost estimate. I'm not hearing a range. I think when it comes to ARPA, I put on my my ARPA hat tonight for tonight's meeting, and I'm really zoomed in on these next 24 months because that's what the ARPA funding structure is for these next 2 years, year over year. And I know we have needs after 2 years generally, but I want to propose funding the HR line item to $2 million rather. I really want to see more dollars getting pushed out into the community and being spent. Sure, the city general fund is going to have to pick up the tab after 2 years or so, and that's okay, because this has always been a project that the city has needed, ARPA or not. You know, like I said in the beginning of the meeting, we wouldn't even be here right now if the November election, I think, didn't happen the way it did. And so the needs of our city continue to remain, ARPA or not. And I think with ARPA tonight, we need to really, as a council, put as much money out into the community over these next 24 months. And I'll support the HR line item here over these next 24 months, and that's about $2 million in my eyes. And I think if we can free up $1 million, we can have a lot of our other needs met. This is the American Rescue Plan, and I want to make sure that we're serving our Americans as much as possible. I want to keep the conversation tonight going. Do a little time check. It's 8:30. We're not close to the end, but I think that we're developing the conversation very nicely. I really like what I'm hearing from my colleagues. And I want to go down the list of virtual raised hands. Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I also echo your sentiments in regards to that line item. I think we all are goal-oriented, that this money needs to move directly into the hands of those that we represent. Many of us continue to hear our community with what are the pressing issues out there. And I am very excited when I'm able to see $1 million. And now that we are moving $1 million, I would kindly request that we move the money into the community service. I think all of us echo that this money needs to go into direct hands. With that said, I would like to move $1 million, move the line item of number 2 from 500,000 up to $1 million. I think all of us here have experienced that the county really needs some support. We've been talking just to give you guys a staff and I, we're going to be presenting at the county task force. Things move very, very slow at the county. I currently feel that we really need to invest in that mental health, the services for domestic violence, abusive victims, LGBTQ community, and our seniors. They really need that support. And so I would like to increase the funding from 500. I know $1 million sounds a lot. I like to aim high, but if we could at least increase the allocation of that funding, I think that is definitely on the top 3 priorities. When you look at the surveys that the city has taken, we have the opportunity. Mayor, you have been leading the homeless task force to increase this fund line item and maybe look at the recommendations that have been coming through your task force and maybe funding some of those recommendations. I know that you have been working really hard with community members, and I think it would mean a lot if we were able to fund some of their ideas. Again, this is just a draft that staff could take and come back to, but I would kindly ask at this time if we could increase that line item number 2. I know there is others, so I won't be greedy. If we could at least increase it from 500,000 to 800,000, I would definitely appreciate it. I think our community would appreciate it. And lastly, I think a lot of the ideas overlapped when I heard us talking at the last meeting, and a lot of them went into this line number 2. There was a lot of overlapping. So today we don't have to be giving staff what individual programs. I think it's just the umbrella of the activity that we want to make sure that there's funding for. And because of the information that I have seen, I do feel that 500,000 is not enough. And so I would like to ask this council if we could increase that line item from 500,000 to 800,000, please. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. I really want to direct this meeting here, and we're not going to come to a conclusion tonight. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Tonight is just a start, and whether we're decreasing amounts or increasing amounts, I think we're going to have some sort of organized strategy here. And so for tonight, how about we make our recommendations to decrease line items or not as a council, and that way we can have more figures to work with and come back on another meeting and increase funding in different areas or new areas. That way we can take this step by step. I think going from one bucket to another bucket to another bucket tonight isn't going to help us. Our community is watching and thinking out loud or kind of brainstorming on the spot isn't in the best interest of our council. Or we'll be here until 11:30 tonight. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We don't want to do that. Let's take our time. It is a lot of money. Even for the CIP or the operating budget, we never get it in one night. And so I think we've made a whole lot of progress tonight, and we're going to keep hearing from council members. But I want to reserve any type of decision right now until we hear from all our council members. And then let's do a round here and let's hear from everybody. Say what you want to say, put your thoughts out there, your proposals. That's what we're here for. And then we'll come full circle in a bit. Thank you. Next up, we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
For my hand before I forget. Thank you, Mayor. So I concur with you, Mayor. You know, there's a reason why it's called American Relief Program.
American Rescue Plan.
American Rescue, but it's a
rescue means
to relieve. It also means to relieve, you know, people from stress or economic stress. So the way I see it, I do agree with Councilmember Dominguez on that HR, because irregardless, the city was going or is going to upgrade the system anyhow. And, you know, that's probably in the future with the general fund money. And right now, this money is really for the community. And I'm really, in a sense, disappointed that not all of it, more of it was going for the city government instead of the people. And it needs to go to the people. And so I'm going to agree with Councilmember Chu, Dominguez about that money from the HR needs to go back. And I think you, Mayor, is the one that said about $1 million going just 2 million, reducing it from 3 million to 2 million. And I would like to put at least some of it in the number 3 on the community services. That's the low and moderate income assistance, digital inclusion, recreation classes and programs, and utility payments. Many folks are hurting with the utility payments. They keep PG&E just raised their funds. Water is going to be going up because Santa Clara Valley Water District just raised their rates. So we need to focus on that. I would like to increase that funding to $500,000, and then the social services. But I think that what takes precedence is the number 3, because that one includes more things. For example, a lot of folks didn't have childcare, or they didn't have the money to pay for childcare. And in order for them to go back to work, they need childcare. And I don't even see childcare on there. And that was one of my recommendations. So I really need staff to come back and start putting some of these recommendations that we put on there that really are for the people. Those that were hurting, that lost their jobs. So yeah, I really stress that number 3 be increased from 300,000 to 500,000.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I support you. And so let's say, how about this? Okay. Tonight, let's focus on objections, respectful objections to the recommendations. And then once we establish decreases in funding for certain line items, we'll stop there tonight. and then we'll hold another meeting for ARPA, because there's no way we're doing ARPA in one night. That's not how it works. And so tonight we'll communicate our objections, decrease funding for certain line items or projects. And then the next meeting, once we have that sort of baseline established, the council will convene and have discussions on increasing funding for other line items or proposals. That way we can do it in an organized manner for our community to observe as they are tonight, in an orderly way, where everybody can have also the time in between meetings to really deliberate amongst themselves, or to gain information or inquiry from staff, and make more carefully thought out decisions. Okay, that is my recommendation. I've never approved a budget in one night, and I know we can all use some time to strategize on how we want the funds to move forward. I'm here to support the council, but that is my ask in the interest of strategic policymaking and for the benefit of our community. Next up here, we have Councilmember Chu.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I do agree with you to reduce the software for you see, when I introduced this HRIS, it didn't include the financial management system, because I know that there's a system already for financial system, but we don't have the one for HRIS. So I recommended that, and also the cyber programs and training because of the need, because of cyber attacks. So I do agree. That's why I do agree with you, Mayor Tran. And also I do agree with the recommendations of Councilmember Dominguez to increase the number 2, mental health, from 500 to 800, and also Vice Mayor's recommendation on number 3 from 300 to 500, with the caveat that we are going to be aggressive in looking at other source of funding, which I discussed earlier, for number 1, 2, and 3. So I will not reduce the accessory dwelling units, because it's not, that is answering the call for more affordable housing for low income mostly. And also it includes the unpermitted ADUs, which are unsafe for our community. So it's not only the ADUs, but also the unpermitted ADUs. So I will leave that alone. And also, I want to point out, Mayor Tran, that there is an immediate need on one of the line items. And I think we have to make a decision fairly soon. That's in the line item number, under infrastructure, line item number 3. This is 375,000 that needs to be expensed now, because we need to prepare our city buildings to reopen. And that's number 3, COVID safe city facilities improvement. And that's because if we need this line, if we categorize these items, this is one of, I think, is that needs to be addressed soon. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you loud and clear. I'll do a point of information for that immediate need. You said line item 3. We checked in with our assistant city manager, Ashwini. We're not getting any of this funding until, I think, August at the earliest, right? I mean,
we
got it already.
We received 50% of our allocation on June 1st, Mayor.
Oh, so wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh,
so we have part of the funding. And in my next step slide, I had suggested that we would come back for an appropriation action by council for the COVID safe facility improvements, so that we can get those done before everybody returns kind of to on-site work.
Well, sorry,
go ahead.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Chu, go ahead.
Ashwini, when are you coming back with that COVID-free City Hall and other facilities. When is that the next meeting?
Next meeting, June 15th, yes.
Perfect, because that needs to be funded right away. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Chua. I really appreciate you so much. No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, let's get the dollars out ASAP. And Councilmember Chua is absolutely right. And any of these line items that can go out after tonight, I'm ready to vote to approve it. I mean, I would love to see the money go out tomorrow. And that's really the importance, I think, at least for me tonight, to see as many dollars as possible go out into the benefit of our community that's gone through a 100-year pandemic. So thank you, Councilmember Chua. Absolutely. Next up, we got Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. When we're looking at the figures, are we supposed to be looking at the proposed funding, or the column that says fiscal year 21-22 funding?
So the total proposed funding, and then it's, kind of spread out over a certain number of years, right? Some may be 1 year, some 2 years, 3 years. So I think for the immediate spending, if you look at the fiscal year 21-22 column, that would give you a sense of how much we were proposing to spend in the first year.
Okay. So that column is what we would hypothetically be voting on tonight then?
Not necessarily tonight. Our plan was to kind of get the initial input and then come back to you with a final plan in August, except for this kind of time-sensitive COVID safe improvements item. So we were planning to come back in August. If council wanted to ask us to move forward on certain items, we're happy to do that. But we felt like we needed to have this discussion and then come back to you with a revised plan based on the input we received today in August. And then we would actually come back with an amendment to the budget, the FY 21-22 budget, to reflect whatever actions we take through this plan.
And Mayor Tran and council, just to piggyback off of what our assistant city manager indicated, yes, this item's only set up for direction, so we wouldn't want any final action tonight.
Okay, I understand. That's very helpful. Well, I brought up that earlier because I just wanted to know a very small logistical thing, because I noticed that council members, in efforts to further support some of the line items, I think are looking at the proposed funding. So I just want to make sure that it's reflected of the actual figures that are on the table. So for example, and I actually do support increasing some of these programs and services. So I think item 2 and 3 was brought up earlier by various colleagues. I support both of them. I support increasing both of them, but I think the number that we're looking at is 150,000. And if the request is to increase it, yeah, I totally support that. But that is a stark contrast from 500,000. It's not to say that I wouldn't support raising that either, but I did want to point that out. Same thing with the 300,000 for the assistance for low and moderate income. If we wanted to increase that, I'm supportive of increasing from 100,000 and upwards. But I want to make sure we're on the same page here. That said, I'm not going to point out too much as to, you know, where areas should be defunded per se, or decreased in funding. I think that's a very complicated topic that we can go on for several hours about, and maybe, you know, that's going to be the case at a future meeting. But, you know, in the interest of trying to get through this item tonight, you know, I support most of the programs here. I want to narrow down my requests because I don't want to overwhelm staff. So I'm going to ask a series of questions on that request. Well, first off, for the emergency management plan that I see here, can you elaborate further as to what that entails?
So good evening, Walter Rossman. So the council adopted an assessment, as Shmini talked about, in November last year. So we've started working on that. We got about over 100 recommendations from the consultant. There were some 3 urgent ones, very critical ones, which we're working on right now. You're going to see the effort of that in August when we come back to the council. Beg your pardon, council member.
I didn't catch that. Can you repeat?
Okay, so this report has some 3 critical tasks to implement for an emergency operations management plan, and these are going to come back to the council in August. However, staff capacity is not sufficient to implement the next level of recommendations, about 50, within a reasonable time period. So we have quotes from a consultant. We have basically got a smorgasbord. What can you do? How much would it cost? And we have not finished analyzing this yet, but it will pay for a portion of those recommendations to be implemented.
Okay. And would the figure that was proposed here, or is before us here, would that be spent solely on consulting, or would that be staffing and miscellaneous?
It would be for one-time costs, which is mainly consultant dollars. It wouldn't be for staffing, temporary staffing perhaps, but it would not be for permanent staffing.
Okay, that's fine. Moving on to staffing, what are the guidelines for using ARPA funds on staffing? Can we go over that just real briefly again?
Sure, Councilmember Fan. So again, using kind of the revenue replacement category as our framework for using the funds and reporting on these funds, there are really no limitations on using it for staffing. As I mentioned, we had reached out to a lot of other cities, and some of them have used these monies just to kind of balance their budget, which then includes staff costs. But there's no limitations. The only thing we had suggested was that, you know, using it because it's one-time dollars, using it for one-time costs rather than ongoing costs, even if it's staffing. But there's no limitations.
Okay. That said, I'm looking at positions that will be eliminated, and of those positions, I feel like the position that deals with revenue more so than perhaps other positions would be the chief fire enforcement officer. So I'd like to ask a number of questions on that. Eliminating that position, what would be funded in place of that?
So the position was eliminated in the adopted budget. And so it was kind of used to balance the budget. So we, that was kind of one of the actions taken along with the defunding and elimination of other positions. So there's no.
Okay, so, or rather, let me rephrase the role of that position of, fire code enforcement and fire prevention and whatnot. What would be in place of that if we remove this?
Yes, and I'll look to Walter and Chief Raleigh.
So, which allows me to come back with the question the mayor had just an hour ago or so. So he asked about this will help to answer the question, so allow me to go a little bit around here. I mentioned that the work of the fire prevention staff, which handles with inspections, was about 3,000.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The workload for fire inspections, which includes the 3 fire inspection prevention of fire prevention inspectors. Thank you. Sorry for that. The chief enforcement officer and some help from the hazmat inspectors. They had a workload in 2020 calendar year of about 3,000 inspections, 3,000 cases they looked at. The same complement of staff for fiscal year 19, so that's pre-pandemic, most of it was about 4,200. So what that means is the existing staff is able to had less workload by about a fourth from fiscal year 19 to calendar year 20, because that's the data we have to compare for you.
Is that a FTE?
It's FTE, so it's about 6 FTEs doing other work too, but working together, the same complement of staff. So with the chief fire enforcement position being eliminated by the council last week, we will actually fill the fire prevention officer position, fire prevention inspector position, and that will again allow us the same amount of 6 filled positions, handling less work than they handled in 2019 fiscal year. With the pandemic subsiding, we would expect the workload to go up again, but we believe there's sufficient capacity of staff in order to handle an increased workload, even by 25%.
So what was the cost savings be? Or in terms of, I'm sorry, what would be the salary difference then from the chief enforcement officer and the next employee that's
we have a slide, Councilmember Fan, if I can just ask Mike to bring that up so you can see the cost for both the chief fire enforcement officer position as well as the fire prevention inspector. So here's the full. Walter, do you want to walk through it, or Lauren?
Sure. So what you see here is if you for the first, I think this additional cost is right at the bottom line for you, council member. It's about $56,000 in the full cost per year, and for 3 years will be about $168,000. One thing which I also want to bring to your attention is the incumbent, per our rules, city service rules, civil service rules, has the option of assuming the role of the fire inspection position. So if the incumbent chooses to go there, then we would have a full complement of staff right away without recruitment.
Does that amount, the 55,000, does that account for benefits and pension?
That is all inclusive. That's the total cost.
Okay. And sorry, give me a second here. How long would that fire inspector position be budgeted for?
It's budget ongoing. The vacant position, yes.
So I guess this is a question for maybe Chief Brawley. The current position, or rather the existing position, the Chief Fire Enforcement Officer, what kind of experience, what kind of expertise is required for that kind of work?
Thank you, Councilmember Fan. Rick Frawley, Acting Fire Chief. The current Chief Enforcement Officer position is a position that includes fire investigative certifications through the state of California, as well as peace officer certification, and has been impactful and directed upon investigation, code compliance, and investigative duties, as well as assisting within some of the inspection pieces that Walter mentioned earlier.
And the fire prevention inspector position, would, or the proposed one, would that position also look into arsons or environmental crimes and whatnot that the existing position would has been performing?
In part, yes. The plan that is being implemented currently has criminal enforcement activity falling underneath the Milpitas Police Department, as we previously had prior to the chief enforcement position. And we're in the process of training personnel within the fire prevention division to state fire marshal investigator standards. And that's an ongoing project that we're working on within the fire department.
Okay. And how long would it take to get a new hiree these kinds of training and certification?
Well, we've completed the training, the 3 core classes that are part of the state fire program for fire investigators. There are 3 classes that have been completed for 5 of our current fire prevention employees. The next steps are to engage in further basic post-training and what we call task book training. So part of the certification and qualification through the state fire training division to be a fire investigator requires a task book with specific critical tasks to be completed. And that is part of the next steps. And that would be dependent upon the number of incidents that those trainees would respond to under the leadership of our other investigator that we currently have on staff.
Point of personal privilege, pardon me, I'm sorry. I apologize, Councilmember Fan. I just want to take a moment here to ask, actually point of information. Go to Acting Chief Frawley. I think my concern is maintaining 4 personnel that are qualified for fire prevention. The titles don't mean so much to me. I just really, public safety is the key. So let me ask a question on the position. The Chief Fire Enforcement Officer, are they qualified to fill the fire prevention inspector position? Do they have the same, if not greater qualifications?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that they will have the same qualifications to meet that vacancy, but I'd have to confirm. But off the top of my head, I believe that the qualifications would meet and or exceed.
Absolutely, thank you. And I know that's not, that's the thought. And so I resign my advocacy for the Chief Fire Enforcement Officer position, knowing that that position qualifications may be suitable for the fire prevention inspector position. And just looking at the position, credentials sort of a thing, certifications. My concern for the city is maintaining the personnel. The titles don't mean so much to me. And so if that opportunity may be there for the position, then that's sufficient for me going forward. And so I do want to do that a point there. And I resign my advocacy for the Chief Fire Enforcement Officer position, knowing that I think there's an opportunity, generally speaking, I love my words, for that fire prevention inspector position to be fulfilled possibly. And so thank you, Councilmember Fan, back to you.
Sure. I do think that the experience goes a long way, and getting the inspector position up to par with the expertise that is required of fire code prevention, of arsons, of environmental crimes. I think that is an important aspect to look at. Going back, we've seen a number of things go wrong that have been prevented, that have been, I guess, caught, if you will. If you recall, there was an arsons case not too long ago in 2019 when some random guy out of state came into town and started lighting up our hillsides, and we were able to bring it to justice with extensive arsons investigation experience. I don't think that is something that can be achieved overnight, but ultimately, I respectfully remain on my position of advocating to keep the position. My request, I guess, if council has a compromise, if there's no consensus on retaining the position in full, would be potentially splitting up the funding years so that it's 1 year less funded for the fire inspector position, but another year funded for the chief enforcement officer. And that way, we would be able to have the resources to train personnel to handle the post-COVID fire code issues, because I would expect a series of them coming forward. I think earlier it was brought up that in terms of the cost recovery element of it, that there was a dip in recent times in terms of the revenue that was coming in.
And interject, sir. Can we do a poll for your proposal and really move the idea here? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's do it for Councilmember Fan's proposal here. Please, if you support it, raise your actual hand. That way we can get to the.
Should I repeat it?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, so it's splitting up the fire inspector position, defunding it a year. So essentially funding it for 1 year, and for the chief fire enforcement officer to be funded for 1 fiscal year.
Okay, we're doing a poll here. Simply raise your hand.
Mayor Tran, if you'd like, what I could do is just go down the row and just.
I'll go down. Councilmember Fan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Wait, sorry, I have a question.
Okay, let's go to Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I know that this is a very important decision, and I want to, as the mayor of the city, I know that we traditionally do the roll call from the left to the right, but because I think this is such an important decision, I want to look towards your leadership to see what you as a leader of the city. It sounds like I had 2 or 3 different answers from you, and I'm trying to follow, and there is no rules that say the roll call has to be taken from left to right. So at this time, I would like to kindly ask you if you could go ahead and start the roll call with yourself. Thank you for your kind consideration.
I appreciate your suggestion. We're going to keep it consistent and uniform here per usual. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Abstain.
Councilmember Chua. Your microphone, please.
Nay.
Vice Mayor Montano.
No.
And myself is a no. Okay, great. Let's keep moving here. Yeah, again, I think I just want 4 personnel in there. And I know we have a vacant fire prevention inspector position that may interest anybody out there. So my concern is the personnel. The titles don't mean much to me. And I know there's a vacancy that anybody can apply to. And I think looking at the compensation, it wasn't too different based on the staff slide. So thank you very much. I just care about the public safety and personnel and staffing and filling in positions. And I know we have one position, a fire prevention inspector, that is open and accepting applications. And so that's it. Okay, great. So typically for a city council meeting, we have a 4-hour time period before there is a policy to adjourn due to the time. I want to come together as a council here and make sure everybody's voice is heard and provide some direction tonight. I know we're not going to have I know we're not going to have 100% direction, but I would like to provide some direction tonight based on the consensus. And we do have a quarter of the $16.8 million here at virtual or actual City Hall that can be used. And I know Councilmember Chua, whom I listened to very carefully. Hey, there are, I think item number 3 is ready to be spent. I think there's consensus there. I think I heard consensus for decreasing the ARPA funding for the HR line item from 3 million to 2 million. That opens up things. What else did I hear tonight?
The workforce.
The workforce, increasing funding there. I want to go to Ashwini, who's leading us here on the city staff side. Is the workforce development funding, is that funding that needs to go out as soon as possible, or do we have time there to spend making decisions?
Mayor Tran, we have some time, and I'll let Alex jump in as well, but we have some time because, as I mentioned, we already had some funding going into programs in our budget with Nova Works and NextFlex. So again, when we come back in August, our hope was that we bring you much more detail on what we would plan to do with the money, and then get direction at that point. But Alex, jump in. I know Vice Mayor Montano wanted to kind of include that summer workforce program, so that may be something that we want to move forward on quicker. Alex?
Yes, thank you, Ashwini. I would agree. When we're talking about the 2 phases of the Nova Works program, we do anticipate that the phase 2 will start sometime in the late summer, early fall. And that again would result in workforce development training. So we do have some time in that regard. However, if the City Council is interested in doing some type of summer program, relatively quickly, then setting aside some funding and perhaps partnering with other organizations may be helpful for us to achieve that mission.
Okay, great. So if the council would like, thank you very much, Alex, you're doing a great job. If the council would like to actually fund a lot of these line items, I think we can do it tonight. Now, we did free up $1 million, and we can carry that $1 million forward and make a decision on that going forward. But again, we have a host of items like the hospitality industry, hotel folks. We have the Chamber of Commerce and all of them. I would love to, if there's consensus, fund all of them tonight. And that new money that we really directed tonight, we created tonight, we can bring that money forward and make a decision on that at the next meeting. I think that would not be too bad. That way we can actually accomplish a lot of the funding tonight that's already recommended by staff, and it's all good. There's consensus. And then what money we freed up from that $1 million, we can move forward and increase funding to those certain line items that people wanted. That money will just come in at another day. Does that make sense, folks? That way we can accomplish a whole lot tonight based on staff's recommendation and the council consensus. I just keep seeing, I want to go to my colleague, one of the best in Milpitas, Councilmember Chu. I keep seeing her virtual raise hand go up and down. I'm just going to go to you. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Because when you speak and then, oh, he answered my question. So
yeah.
Okay, I got. But I just want to clarify that to Ashwini or Alex, the workforce development that we are increasing the amount to. Does that include hiring the summer program? Does that include that? Does it mean hiring interns?
The Councilmember Chua, the interns are already funded in the budget. There are several interns that are funded in the budget, but I think Vice Mayor Montano was looking for kind of an additional program that would employ youth and not necessarily just in the city, right? So we have a summer workforce program that Recreation and Community Services led. We, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had to do a virtual one, but that was also the concept behind that kind of program where we would pay for it and they would be placed in different organizations, including the city. So something like that, but maybe an expanded version of that.
Right. So we can hire new interns, right? Because we have a lot of graduates, Milpitas graduates that, bachelors, undergrads that are ready to work.
Right.
And we need to hire them,
Yeah. About, if you don't mind, I was looking more for low-income students that need to support their families. I'm sure you can hire more, but specifically targeting those low-income students.
Okay, but I would like to add more hires to open to everybody.
I like it a lot. Here's the,
Right, you could do that too.
Right, because we have, I'm getting a lot of inquiries. I know the rest of our council members are too. This just like Councilmember Dominguez said, she got her experience working at the age of 14. So it's perfect. So I would like to do that. Thank you.
Do a point of order. Let me do a point of order here. All right.
Thank you, Mayor Tran.
You're welcome. Yeah, let me do a point of order. Here's what we're doing. Okay. Let's give staff some direction tonight. We're approaching the 4-hour mark. And here's what we're doing. We're going to give staff direction to move forward with the recommendations. However, with changes, the HR line item is going from 3 million to 2, freeing up $1 million. And that $1 million we're going to discuss at the next meeting. And I know folks had requests for increased funding for certain line items. That's great. We're going to get to it. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do it. It's going to be amazing. We're excellent. It's going to be amazing. So I think that is the direction tonight based on the consensus of the council. If there are any objections, I want to go to my colleagues. And that's the direction I'd like for us to have for our city staff tonight. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't see any further objections. Let me go to Ashwini. Does that Is that good for tonight?
Yeah, just need a clarification, Mayor. So when you're saying next meeting, are you saying June 15th?
We can do the 15th. Yeah.
Okay. That's
I
what
think we're meeting on the 22nd. I mean, we can do special meetings. This is a special meeting tonight. We can do special meetings if we have to. And
Okay,
we're gonna
but
get
in
out of
June,
here
very soon in June, right? So we're not talking about the August meeting. We're talking about coming back soon.
Yeah, and I think next week on the 15th, we can figure it out. I hear a lot of collaboration from my colleagues, which is a beautiful thing. I hear Councilmember Chua supporting Councilmember Dominguez. I hear Vice Mayor supporting Councilmember Chua. It's a whole circle. And so I think that that $1 million, there will be a lot of consensus for that next week. So let's go ahead and do that. But I'm very, very thankful for the City Council to set really create, remove $1 million. That's a whole lot of money, and it's going to help out mental health. It's going to help out other areas as well. And so that's the direction for staff tonight. We don't need a motion for it.
And Mayor, June 15th agenda I know is extremely full, so we may have to poll for a different date next week for a special meeting.
Yeah, I think we're going to square this away at the next meeting for ARPA. We can do June 22nd. I know the council's meeting in closed session, and so maybe we can move that closed session to at the end of the business day, and then we could have a special city council meeting that evening for the community to see as well. How's that? Well, there's options. We'll figure it out. Huh?
Okay, we'll work offline on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll get it right. But a tremendous opportunity. I'm just here to support all my colleagues with good faith, and I want to move to adjourn this meeting. Really tremendous work with ARPA. Looking for a second. We have, I saw you. We have a second. We got a second by the Vice Mayor to adjourn the meeting. I want to thank all the city staff. I want to thank our guests here tonight. Again, we're going to look back on this pandemic one day, and I'm so thankful to be a part of this city. Just a tremendous, we really did a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work. And hey, our fiscal year is not over yet. All right. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion is carried. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Have a great night, everybody.
You too. Thank you.